Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another thrill-packed episode of the Jim Cornette Experience. It's WrestleMania weekend, and oh, I have questions. Is too much of a good thing bad? And if so, then is too much of a bad thing even worse? And how many matches can a matchmaker make if a matchmaker could make matches? Joining me to talk about all this and more and trying to make it entertaining, at least more so than it has been to us, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you, the maker of newsworthy podcasts, the great Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again to discuss a few days, or I guess a day or so in wrestling, as well as the beginning of a promising career as a motivational speaker.
I got that one. You know, I'm not as grumpy and cranky as I sound. I sound bad. I've had no sleep. I've talked about how great I've been sleeping for the past few years. Just like a baby. Last night, I really slept like a baby. I woke up every hour crying and pissed the bed. We are, ladies and gentlemen, currently, it's Saturday afternoon on WrestleMania weekend. And WrestleMania hasn't even started yet, and we have already watched more wrestling than I watch in the course of a week normally. We'll say that. Did you work this out, Brian? Just from the Monday the Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania, all the way through to the closing moments of Sunday night's WrestleMania. The WWE and AEW alone, not counting any of the other promotions, will have produced and or broadcast in some fashion, whether it's TV, pay-per-view, streaming, whatever. Oh, God, I came up with 26 hours, and then I think I forgot to add NXT in. Those two, and because AEW owns Ring of Honor now, so you got to count that. So those two companies in 1 week have aired more television than all of the territories in the 70s combined across the United States and Canada that would air on a weekly basis. They've all done, just two companies have done it all this week. And unfortunately for us that used to scrounge around for the videotapes of all those shows, none of these shows were necessarily as good as those shows. However, there were moments. But we're on Saturday afternoon here, and already a bunch of stuff has happened over the last several days. AEW Wednesday, NXT Tuesday wasn't worth anything. We're not even going to talk about it. It was bleh. But AEW Wednesday, Friday night had Smackdown, had Rampage. They've given up on that program. And the Hall of Fame, and Ring of Honor. And then on the drive-through, your program coming up in a couple of days, we're going to talk about NXT and both nights of WrestleMania and however many people. Are the creative teams for these companies going to start jumping out windows like stockbrokers did on the crash of 29?
Well, the creative team of these companies, there's a one-man creative team in one company.
Oh, well, hey, everybody keep Tony away from the windows. Whatever you do.
Yeah.
It's
a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, all right. And again, I'm trying to be happy. I haven't had sleep, and I've seen a lot of wrestling. And it's been grumpy weather here, too. Just for all the people that like to keep track, I give you the weather update. 3 days ago, on March 30th, it was the hottest March 30th in Louisville, Kentucky in 125 years. It was 83 degrees for about 2 hours. Then the rain and 60-mile-plus-per-hour winds came through, and in 36 hours, it dropped 55 degrees, and we had snow flurries. By Friday, this morning, Saturday, it was a hard freeze, and I was out in the front yard with the Monroe brothers, doing sod and French drains for me at 9 o'clock this morning, freezing my tits off, as people used to say in the South. And now, this is in between watching all this wrestling. But the good news, have I told the people about the good news, Brian?
What's the good news?
Action Figure Armageddon may be the most successful wrestling-related enterprise of the weekend. It's being both financially and critically acclaimed. The Feather Bottoms, Hotchkiss has built an unbreakable website. The traffic was immense at noon today when the action figures went on sale, the new action figures from Figures Toy Company, the Bloody Variant, and the Commentator playset. Somebody even tweeted, can you imagine what this would have been like with the old website? And no, I can't. Because people glommed, they're getting their confirmation emails, they get tracking numbers. As I mentioned, Fanny and Felcher have this thing well in hand in the fulfillment center. The Feather Bottoms, they have the power. They are power bottoms, are the Feather Bottoms, as I mentioned. And they got this thing under control. Now, the bad news for people wanting action figures, if you want the Bloody Variant, you might already be too late, because in an hour and 5 minutes, we sold 597 of the Bloody Variants at JimCornette.com, by the way. And if you want the Commentator playset, you're in a little bit better shape because we had some more of those to begin with, but we sold almost 400 of those in the same amount of time. This program will not air to the people until late Sunday, and if it keeps up at this rate, obviously, it will slow down, certainly, maybe, but jump in now if you can, because these might not last too much longer. And thank you to everybody who has jumped on these, and especially to the Feather Bottoms for making it all possible.
And now that this is such an overwhelming success and everyone's happy, I think we can finally reveal to the listeners that I am Hotchkiss Featherbottom.
You are not. Don't try to take somebody else's credit.
Me and my team have done a fantastic job turning this whole operation around, and I'm proud of everything we've done.
You are assuming the identity of another person. You are an identity thief. Brian Last, how dare you?
Do we have a sponsor for that?
No, but we should.
I think we may.
And now we will, and because Hotchkiss has gone through 3 of those things himself, and he wants to keep a hold of this one for a while, so you can't steal it away from him. Those identities are hard to come by anymore.
That's right.
Anyway, before we start talking about the wrestling, and again, by the way, did I mention one more time, JimCornette.com? I'm not even going to hard sell them today because we're just inundated. But before we get to the wrestling, one more email from the Cult of Cornette on a very popular recurring...
Oh, no.
What? You don't even know what I'm going to say?
I know exactly what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
Why is my, what is my, how is my, who is my?
Let me clarify.
Is it mine?
Is it mine? We haven't done Is It Mine yet. That may be a good one next. But no, well, Travis wrote in, says he's from Yakima, Washington. And he's a huge fan of the programs, really enjoyed the recent Why Is My segments. And he's here with the next edition, and he searched Why Is My, and see, we've done Why Is My Wife, and then we've done some bodily parts, but we've flipped this again now. Why Is My Husband? And these are would you like to hear the top 8?
Okay, let's hear this.
All right. Why Is My Husband? We're usually going in descending order, number 1 to number 8. Why Is My Husband number 1? Apparently, remember why it was Why Is My Wife So Beautiful was number 1.
Number 1 here is Why Is My Husband number 1?
No.
Is it Paul Jones's wife entering this in?
No, remember, I remember when we did Why Is My Wife, number 1 was Why Is My Wife So Beautiful? And then
yes, in
descending order, they started getting a little more critical.
Why does my wife have a knife?
Yeah, stuff like that. But this gets straight to the meat of the matter. Number 1, why is my husband not getting erect? So apparently the folks inquiring about the husband, they get right to the meat of the matter, so to speak, rather than beating around the bush with platitudes and compliments.
Hey, let me ask you something. When you Google that, how many of those websites say it's you? The answers don't come up, just the questions.
And a lot of these times, they're probably asking just out of frustration. It's a rhetorical question they're Googling since, well, like number 2, you really couldn't Google the exact answer to this. Why is my husband yelling at me? A lot of people apparently asking that question.
Maybe he has hearing loss.
Well, no, you would have the hearing. Well, if he,
If you have hearing loss,
possibly.
you can't manage
you
your
talk
own volume.
Louder.
Yeah.
Well, maybe hearing aids would help people be less angry. Number 3. Number 3. Why is my husband so angry?
He needs a hearing aid.
And he's yelling. I can't hear you, goddammit. Number 4. Why is my husband so defensive? Because he can't fucking hear. And he's
keep questioning him about everything.
Yes. And there is an element of nitpicking coming up here. Number 5? Why is my husband always tired? He's probably tired from being mad and screaming at you and not getting erect. That can wear you out, I guess.
Or if it's the other way around, it could be all that fucking.
There you go. It's just not happening in your home. Number 6.
I wasn't even insinuating there was an affair going on with this mysterious made-up man that we're talking about.
He's come home unloaded every time. Number 6. What are you tittering? Why is number 6? Why is my husband so annoying? So now he's not getting erect. He's yelling at me. He's angry. He's defensive. He's always tired and he's annoying.
Not one positive thing yet.
It's not really speaking well for the husbands of America.
No, why is my husband so handsome? Why is my husband so smart?
So supportive?
Why does my husband make so much money?
So rich, wealthy? Yeah, no.
Why are all my friends trying to fuck my husband?
Maybe the answer might be in number 7 to some or all of these.
Oh, okay.
Why is my husband always on his phone?
Trying to make money.
I was thinking he's probably trying to line something else up.
Oh.
See, we're coming at this from 2 Well, we can see where our priorities are. You financial, greedy avariciousness of you.
Yeah. You go line up where you're going to line up. I'm going to go make the money, and let's see what I line up after that. That's always been my attitude.
That sounded like a Dusty Rhodes, the you financial, greedy avariciousness of you. Oh, I need more sleep. And finally.
Oh, that wasn't finally? All right. Yeah.
To wrap this up.
Please.
Well, we've gone through why is my husband not getting erect, yelling at me, so angry, so defensive, always tired, so annoying, and always on his phone. A lot of bad habits there, unsavory activities. Number 8, at least we get back to possibly the meat of the matter, or potentially also some underlying condition. Why is my husband's sperm watery?
All right.
That was number 8.
I guess Helen Gurley Brown isn't around to answer that. I guess.
I was never known that was an issue. I get how thick or thin is it supposed to be? I mean, it's right in the middle there. It's not like a chocolate milkshake, but then again, it's not supposed to be like a garden hose. You should have some consistency, I guess. Maybe that is something that should be looked up on WebMD or something.
Well, I believe you said that was the last one, and I think you said it's the last time we're going to be visiting the why is my, where is my, how is my.
I did not say that at all. I said that was the last one of this particular installment. I didn't say that these can pop up again every day. It depends on what the people send us. Because we give the people what they want, unlike several wrestling promotions we watched over the last few days. Anyway, all right, I mentioned, let's just talk about the wrestling. It's the WrestleMania weekend. This is like the Super Bowl for football or March Madness for basketball. Just, again, not as exciting. But let's get right to the wrestling. We mentioned what we're going to talk about today and then what we're going to talk about on the drive-thru. And I mentioned that Tuesday night's NXT, I read the recap before I committed. And I was waiting to see anyone's name that I cared about or doing anything that I cared about them doing, and it didn't come. So we've skipped that. We will jump ahead to AEW on Wednesday night, I believe was the starting point for this thing. Did you watch this program, Dynamite on Wednesday night?
I did watch Dynamite. I did not watch NXT. And actually right now, because you reminded me, I'm going to watch NXT live in the background. The event is on in the middle of the day right now, the Take and Deliver.
Take and Deliver?
What's the name of the event? Stand and Deliver? Stand and Deliver.
It's carry out and delivery is what it is.
Well, I'm going to put that on in the background, but I did not watch that. But I did watch Dynamite this past Wednesday, and I thought there were elements of Dynamite that were just fantastic this week. And, then some of the usual shenanigans, but some really great stuff this week.
I don't know if we need to go that far. There were some high points, but they start again. Is this a new strategy with Dynamite on Wednesday nights? They start off strong, and they peter out with their peter out by the end of the program.
Yes, they treat the last half hour like it's Friday night.
Yeah, and they don't need to stay up late and watch. Well, you get the
I get the point.
Anyway, the program started off like Mussolini started off, with CM Punk against Max Caster. And I know he's another one of the young guys that Punk wants to help and give experience to and, try to spotlight. We're again in the position of lessening somewhat any impact that Punk has on wrestling on television when he makes random appearances against people like this. But Caster has personality and potential. And that's a fine point we're putting on that pencil at this point. So at least it was a babyface heel match. Caster, I think, needs work, obviously needs work because he's green and he's young, and I'm not knocking him. He's got personality and he's got the rap. He needs work on his punches and his overall flow. He's not... He reminds me physically and the way he moves and potentially a little bit facially expression-wise of Chris Champion. He's a good-looking athlete, but he's not a natural, the smoothest guy in the ring.
New breed Chris Champion.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who'd you think I
Well,
meant?
no, I mean, Chris Champion, he changed throughout his career. He was Yoshi Kwan later on.
Oh, gee, no, I didn't mean after. I meant, when he was young and everybody actually saw him. Nobody really saw him too much at that point.
No, they have a very similar body type, and with this, he doesn't have exactly the same hairdo, but hair shape similar. There is a resemblance between him and new breed Chris Champion, yeah.
But anyway, they got a smidge of heat, nice little comeback, and then Punk missed a knee. Caster took back over. Bowens interfered a little bit for a little false finish. Caster missed an elbow off the top rope, and Punk spun him up and went for a pile driver. And bless it, Caster bent over and got happy feet and was trying to push himself forward to get into position, but what he did was he pushed Punk off balance kind of backwards. They were headed toward the ropes, and Punk put the brakes on, and then Caster kicks his feet straight out instead of up, but Punk saved it on the pile driver. But there was a bobble there. And he pile drives him and then gets the vice and the tap out. And again, a lot of the problem also is Caster has been he was in a tag team for some time, and then he's been working with some of these other guys. I think he still has potential, but he needs work. This did not come together probably the way everybody hoped it would. What'd you think?
I enjoyed it. It wasn't perfect. I'm not saying it was Punk versus Dax, but I enjoyed it. Caster needs to work on things, and with more steady work, hopefully, and with the right people, hopefully those things come together. But let's give credit where it's due. He's got the personality down.
Yeah.
And when you say he's got the rap, I mean, in general, when you say someone can talk on the mic, they got the rap. He's literally got the rap.
Yeah, he literally got the
down.
Rap.
He's incredibly talented. I believe the tag team, the Acclaimed, are still together, but Bowens is injured, someone told me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's there at ringside with him, but he's been featured in more singles matches lately because, as you said, Bowens is hurt in some fashion.
I like the match. I like the fact that Punk is using the goodwill he has from the fans. And look at the reaction he's getting every week, no matter what town they're in. He's using that goodwill to try to have wrestling matches with either someone like Dax, who you know can deliver a great wrestling match, or someone like Max Caster, who really has to elevate his game in this situation where he's been buried on Friday nights for a while. Now he's in the opening match on Dynamite with the biggest star in AEW. I enjoyed it. Not every match could be 5 stars, but I like this kind of pace for Dynamite. And Punk has kind of set a really good pace the last couple of weeks for what that show could be.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's not trying to have the main event of WrestleMania or Starrcade or whatever your big show reference is. He's having a good match, but a suitable match for the opponent he has. It's not going to be a situation where everybody takes Punk as far as MJF did in the dog collar match. It can't be, or then everything's meaningless. And Punk understands the stair step of how to wrestle guys that are completely beneath him, kind of wants to elevate, really on his level, etc. There's proportion to it.
And I'll say one more thing. Caster should absolutely be a project for them to develop as much as they can. Because other than the fear that he's going to say something every now and then that's going to get him in a lot of trouble, I think he could always bounce back from that unless it's really heinous. He's got something that could cross over, I think. He may not be doing the flips like everyone else, and he shouldn't be. He's a bigger guy, too. But again, he's got a personality. You want that. Usually you can train the guys to do some stuff in the ring. You can't train them to have natural personality. He has it.
Yeah, well, Denny Crum, the basketball coach at the University of Louisville, his motto was he didn't want guys that could play basketball. He wanted guys that could jump because he could teach them how to play basketball. You want guys with personality that you can't really teach. It has to come out. And if they're athletic, you can teach them to do moves. Anyway, so Punk was in the ring with Tony Schiavone, who actually interviewed him. And Punk put his arm around Tony to make sure Tony couldn't, out of force of habit, run off and scurry away somewhere. And Punk said he didn't know who was going to be the champion, either Cole or Page. Wink, wink. Does anybody think Adam Cole's going to be the champion at this point? But before his time in AEW is over, he will be the world's champion. And he ain't going to promise that unless he knows where it's going. It was brief and it was perfect. Now I just like to see when it's going to happen and how.
Or if it doesn't happen and how.
Well, Punk's smart enough to know a babyface never blatantly promises something that he cannot or will not or is not going to be delivering.
Yeah. Unless a heel's going to fuck him.
Nah, then you still leave some wiggle room. At least the old-time baby faces did.
I will say I think we can agree, and I think the amount of people who agree grows every week. It certainly shouldn't be Adam Page as the world champion right now.
Well, that's a foregone conclusion. Again, real quick, they've started, or they've not started, they continued the MJF and Wardlow business, but now FTR is telling MJF, well, we like Wardlow. And here we go. How many times have FTR switched? I'm not giving anything away here. They're about to be switched babyface again. Maybe they'll settle on something. I don't mean they FTR. I mean they, the powers that be. But back on Dynamite, Jay Lethal and Jon Moxley. They had to have this match before they had to know on Wednesday what they were doing on Friday. So they, for no reason, they feed Jay Lethal to Jon Moxley on Wednesday and then turn him heel on Friday and feature him in the show closing angle, et cetera, et cetera.
I think their argument would be that Wednesday kind of set up in storyline mode, and I'm not defending this or saying I agree, but it sets up Jay Lethal's mindset for changing the way he did, as it was brought up numerous times during the Ring of Honor pay-per-view.
What they did, seriously, they have wasted all the potential that Jay Lethal had on their main television program. When they brought him in, signed him, had no plan whatsoever, just put him on TV and beat him immediately, then disappeared him, then brought him back and beat him a couple more times. And now they feed him to the fucking plumber. And then they send him back over to Ring of Honor, where he was a big star, and have him doing angles with underneath guys from AEW. Why start a guy with so much talent with no plan, no wins, no push, no opponents planned, here he is, it's a big acquisition on anybody, not just Lethal, anybody.
With Lethal, though, it's interesting because you could say whatever you want. And you have obviously been a fan of his. And other people who love his matches can say that. The bigger story is, despite the way they've given him no opponents and they've beaten him and you never see him, and when you do, he gets beaten again, the crowd reaction for Jay Lethal there,
yeah,
that was the story of the match more than anything to me.
Well, I wrote, as a matter of fact, dueling chants. Even the fans feel sorry for him. Because that's what they like him. They want to see him do better. They're trying to support him. They're getting no help from the booking. And he's getting response based on what he's done before he came to AEW. Think about this. He's in a promotion that's on national television, and the response that he's getting from the crowd now is based on everything he's done in his life before he came to this company. They have done nothing to increase that response or make people think they should increase that response by putting any credibility in him whatsoever. And somebody's going to say, well, he wins on YouTube. But at least they've got the plumber keeping it in the ring and trying to work, since he's affiliated with William Regal or whatever. But
this may have been my favorite Moxley match in a very long time.
Well, that's like being the nicest guy in prison. Favorite Moxley match. I've come to realize I don't like his matches at all, but I like him better when he keeps it in the ring and tries to fucking work, and he did that here. But Lethal looks like the star. He looks like the physical specimen. He's the polished professional. He hits everything perfect, his timing. And, Moxley looks like a fucking CEO of Moxley Plumbing. So anyway, Lethal hit him with everything. An elbow off the top, got a 2 count. Moxley was too far out. That was Lethal's fault. He shouldn't have gone for it with him too far out. But then Lethal goes for a figure 4. Moxley small packages him for a 2 count and immediately hits him with a double arm DDT. For once, it looked good because the guy took it right. 1, 2, 3. He beat him flat in the middle with his finish. And then he goes to Friday night to do angles as a loser from national television who will now go to the secondary company. That's the impression they give everybody. Did I miss anything?
Can't add too much other than to say I really like the match. It's not that I have a problem with Moxley winning a match. I hate Jay Lethal losing again. He keeps losing these matches on AEW's television shows. But I thought it was a really good match. I really enjoyed it. And again, that's why I said 2 weeks in a row, Punk set a pace. And it may not be Punk, just the show itself. There was a pace set in that first segment that when you get to the next match, it continued. Moxley may not be my favorite worker, but this wasn't insulting. This was 2 guys having a match.
Yeah.
They've had a good run where they're getting good stuff into at least that first hour.
Well, I'll tell you what. This one, as a matter of fact, Brian, I think when you talk to Jay Sharknado and Kippelman and all the trolls under the bridge over there at Arcadian Vanguard, when this goes up on YouTube, It ought to be labeled the review that Jim Cornette dares you to hear. I dare the people to listen to this review I'm about to give, because all those people out there say Cornette hates anybody that's not young, that's not a 20-year veteran. He likes all the old guys. He don't like any of the kids. The kids don't live up to his standards. I have new favorite wrestlers. Guess who they are?
I can't wait to hear this.
The Ass Boys. The Gun Club, Austin and Colton. I love these guys. FTR versus the Ass Boys was the highlight of this television program for me.
The Gun Club, I believe, is their official name.
Well, I'm telling you, they got tons of heat and marketing opportunities as the Ass Boys. And they as long as we're not in England, they won't be the Rent Boys. But this match, it was two heel teams, but I had hope for it. And of course, now they're switching FTR. MJF came out for color, so we've got something to listen to and something to look at. And did you see the sign from the guy in the front row? I swear to God, he held it up proudly numerous times. It said, TSB is dynamite. But anyway, so the Guns have tons of personality. They're in great shape. They seem to be serious about their work. They didn't go out there and just because they're not experienced doesn't mean they have to work like indie outlaw goofs. Those two things are not mandatory. Just because you're green doesn't mean you have to work like an indie goof. They were serious about their business. Obviously, their father has been in their ear, but they got, again, the personality, the look, and Austin, especially the way he bumps and reacts and sells and their facials. This whole, and of course, FTR are great leaders for, greener guys. Tony and JR and MJF gave all kinds of love to the Midnight Express on this one. But, anyway, it was a great tag team match for what it needed to be. And it helped the Guns, and it got FTR over. I would have loved to have had the Gun Boys in OVW, because they're the kind of guys that you can teach and train and coach, and they've already got the concept. And you can see them when when you deal with them regularly. Those are the kind of guys you can see getting better all the time. Anyway, Colton has a great drop kick. He's aggressive. They did a deal where Colton missed a splash and went over the top rope, into the corner rather, and went over the top rope, but Austin tagged it, back tag, but it was slick. And Austin jumped in and set up a hot tag. They did the hot tag. They haven't been wrestling for a fucking year, and they're doing hot tags better than every tag team on the roster. Or setting them up, at least. And Dax made a nice comeback. MJF mentioned that Ref Aubrey looks like a human foot. And that's fantastic. And then I thought I was going to be pissed about this, but they're obviously going into the finish because they're picking up the pace. And then suddenly the cameras are suddenly out in the breezeway of the arena. Why? A camera's out there suddenly. Why? Because it's Wardlow. He's broken into the building and he's destroying security, even that MJF placed for him not to get in there. And he comes into the arena, and I was like, fuck, couldn't they have just had this in the middle of a job match? But, it added to the chaos, actually. And he comes in and beats up more security, so they listened. He wasn't just immobilized like a goof. He's throwing people around. He's whacking people. He makes it into the arena, and then there's 15 people around him. And he's just sandwiched in, and they're slowly, moving him by force of people out of the thing while MJF is gloating and whatever the fuck. That was great. Then we come back to the match. And the Guns have a double knockout, and Dax rolls one up, but Billy's up on the apron. And a distraction, boom, boom, boom. And FTR did a teamwork thing out of that and hit their big rig 1, 2, 3. Great match, great deal. Everybody came out better. It was serious. It looked good. And then MJF comes to the ring, and FTR are hot at MJF for what he's done to Wardlow. So now the people are chanting for him. But MJF raises their hands even though they're not happy. And obviously within what's happening on Friday and et cetera, now FTR, at least they're not in a goddamn miscellaneous group anymore. And bless his heart, I loved his, glory days, but at least they don't have Tully in the corner anymore, which, at some point, everybody needs to quit. And I'm not sure Tully's time has not arrived. Did you see him on Ring of Honor?
Oh, yeah, and I even saw the pre-show. I don't know how much of the pre-show you saw.
I actually got that. Well, as the old Steve Allen joke goes, I saw it. I'm not sure I got it. Anyway, so that was that whole piece of business. And that's why, nobody will believe it. But yes, I like some of the young guys when they're serious about their business and show ability and potential and effort. So I'm liking me some Gun Club. I dare you to fucking mock me for it. I'm an Ass Boy fan.
I'm not going to mock you for liking them because I think they have something too, and they're just natural. You want to hit them. You wanted to hit them when they were at ringside. Yeah. Now you really want to hit them. I think they're really good. I like them there. I think FTR show they can work as baby faces. They can work as heels. They can do both style matches perfectly. They are such a good tag team, and they've had a nice little run on TV. The Dax CM Punk match. Losing Tully's a big deal. Beyond the fact that Tully's not 1980s Tully Blanchard anymore, FTR having an old man as a manager did not help them.
It didn't. There was the I can see where the thought was because they are so often compared to Tully and Arn, Dax and Cash, and Carolina Boys and etc. And if this was 20 years ago, it might be better, but it's just not now, like you said.
Other than that, I really enjoyed it, and this continues, again, a nice pace. Not everything's perfect or what I want on the entire show, but for this first hour of the show, I got serious wrestling matches. I get a serious tag team match. One of the reasons you probably like the Gun Club is they're wrestling like a tag team. They're trying to wrestle a tag team match. They're not doing a routine. They're not out there doing the same routine that so many other tag teams did for a while. It seems that AEW is finally starting to get some tag teams in the mix that can just work a match and try to get a crowd reaction from working the match.
Well, I have worries, though, because of what we saw in Ring of Honor. We'll talk about that later on. But next on Dynamite, and here's exactly the detail I'm going to go into on this. The Jericho Appreciation Society are talking, and here comes Santana and Ortiz and Kingston. And they jump them, and they go out in the arena, and it's the same bullshit that they always do. Chaos, and the heels end up beating up the baby faces way past the point where anybody would care if they fucking just poured gasoline on them and set them on fire. And the
problem was this was 2 or maybe 3 weeks, probably 2 weeks of good angles for no good reason jammed into one segment and extended. Because Jericho and his guys getting their comeuppance, not the big one, but a minor one on the road to the big one, from Eddie Kingston and Santana and Ortiz, that was great. You get the pop. Jericho and crew can get their revenge next week. Instead, it's just like the fucking MJF feud again. They go right to the revenge and the destruction endlessly with no help from anyone backstage or security. Where's that guy that guards Moxley? That guy looks bigger and badder than all the wrestlers. Where's everyone? No, none of that happens, and it just goes on forever and forever. It was...
We just saw they had 15 of them because they took Wardlow out.
And yeah, he took a few of them out, too.
MJF hired those. So the you know what? Here's the thing. Now we know. that unless MJF has hired security specifically to look out and not allow you to do anything, everybody else in an AEW arena can commit mayhem, homicide, arson, assault with a deadly weapon, pickpocketing. You can do anything because there's no security anywhere else.
Smart. Obviously, he was a Goldberg fan as a child, and he realized, man, Goldberg got around without any problems backstage. How do I handle this? But no, back to the thing. That's the problem. I don't have a problem with Jericho and his guys getting over on Eddie and Santana Ortiz, but not when they're getting their comeback. It just made no sense. Why not just do this 2 weeks? Cut it in half. It's better. Instead, they went right to Jericho and his crew, making Eddie and Santana Ortiz look like shit for no good reason.
But speaking of looking like shit, Bryan Danielson wrestled Wheeler Yuta. Is Wheeler his first given Christian name, or is that a nickname or a nom de plume?
I will look that up. I don't know.
Is he a wheeler by trade? They called him wheelwrights in the old days, didn't they? Where the people had made the wagon wheels. He's of Asian origin or descent, it looks like, with the name Yuta. So, do they make wagon wheels over in Southeast Asia? Wherever, I don't know. And why the tights? The tights are repulsive.
I'm not seeing anything that says that it's not his real name.
Well, anyway, whatever wheel does, he just wheels around. Maybe he does pops wheelies.
He's a wheeler dealer.
He's a wheeler dealer. He's a good-looking kid, and he's obviously pretty athletic. They brought him in and stuck him with the fucking Puddin' Gang, and immediately then everybody thinks, okay, he's just an interchangeable dipshit. Now that after having exposed him on television with the goofs and him being the guy that loses in the group of goofs, now without changing his tights or his name or his facial expression, they're gonna fucking push him. And we'll get to Ring of Honor in a minute, which this was kind of embarrassing when you think about it. But Danielson wrestled Yuta, and Danielson won. Danielson's great. Yuta's okay. His tights are repulsive. But now this is another guy, instead of having a plan for this guy where he just showed up one day and they stuck him in the Puddin' Gang, and once that everybody's got their opinion made up about him, because that's what you do when you see a guy. I learned this my first week in the business by people just telling me in the locker room. You know where a guy stands as soon as he appears in a wrestling promotion by who he's competitive with and who he's wrestling and how long it takes and all that stuff. And so they put him in with undercard guys and they beat him. And now suddenly we're supposed to, whether he's a good wrestler or not, it doesn't matter. We already know. And nothing has changed about his presentation besides him saying, oh, I want to bow up and be a part of the Blackpool Fight Club or whatever. So anyway.
And that may be enough. I mean, I think those fans are very forgiving, the ones that are there, the ones that are the most hardcore watchers of AEW. And I think Wheeler Yuta has talent. We actually liked him when we saw him in the what was the Ring of Honor tournament? Was it the Pure tournament? I guess it was.
Pure tournament. Yes, he's an athletic guy and a good-looking kid, and he seems serious. And besides his horrendous tights, but you don't just bring a guy in and present him on television for several weeks as a goof and then just start moving him up the ladder. That's
what Tony does. That's what he did with Miro. It's what he does with everyone. If it's good enough for Miro, it's good enough for Wheeler Yuta. That's what I say.
That's why nobody gets over. They're over when they come in, and then they get less over as they go along because of the way that they're utilized.
One last thing I do want to say, because I didn't say it already. Really good match. Really enjoyed it.
And, and Danielson is tremendous also in anything, but just... Cole and Fish and O'Reilly in the ring for a promo with the Undisputed Era. We We really wanted them. Now we've got them. And they've got the tag team belts that they stole. And
this is where the show turned, right here.
Yeah, and by the way, the belts came out of a big box, but that didn't mean they were over. And they start the promo by saying Adam Page ain't here and Dino ain't here, or Dino and Jungle Boy ain't here, and we're going to do this and do that and do the other thing. And it's the same shit as always. And then suddenly, wouldn't you know, just at the right time, almost like there was a cue for the Music Man, Page's music starts playing, and the guy that's not supposed to be here drives into the arena in a compact car with the bull horns on it like Bradshaw's JBL's limousine used to have in the WWF. But this is like a little goddamn Honda Civic or some shit. Are they on a budget? How much of a fucking putz can they make this guy look like?
I just don't think you understand that Young Bucks humor. I think you're the problem.
What? Did he came out in a car the size of, I could drive it up in the back of my Ford Expedition and carry it around with bull horns on the fucking front of it to signify that he's a cowboy. Baby. With his bull horns on and his Civic fucking gassed up. So he hits the ring. All this heat that the heels have built up, stealing the belts and talking bad to everybody. Page hits the ring and without a ton of trouble beats up all three of the fucking heels and chucks them out of the ring, and they start running off from him when the other two baby faces that aren't supposed to be there show up also and beat the heels up some more and take the belts back. So what? How are we supposed to derive from any of this that Adam Cole might someday be the AEW World Champion by beating Adam Page when Adam Page can beat up him and his friends without any help?
Tony has allowed Adam Cole and now Fish and O'Reilly to be booked to the point where I don't give a crap about any of them anymore. Adam Page is not a world champion. Doesn't feel like it. And then you always get the silliness. He's part of the Bucks camp. Cole is part of the Bucks camp. This is where the show's tone changed. I didn't like it one bit. I don't need O'Reilly doing bits in the ring. I don't need Adam Cole doing monologues in the ring. Didn't like this at all. And the one thing, I'll give them credit, it's really fresh and unique to do someone's going to steal the belt angle. I haven't seen that in a while, and I'm sure I won't see it again, I don't know, in the same week. But we'll see what happens.
Well, and then we go back for FTR in the back, talking about winning all the belts and challenging the Hardley Boys. And I got a horrible premonition from that. And then the Bunny took on, what was it? The Owen Hart Invitational. They've actually...
No, it's a qualifying match for it. It's not actually a tournament match.
Yeah, so basically the Owen Hart tournament is going to be the girls. So what? I'm glad Owen had a great sense of humor.
Well, let me stop you, though. I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'll check, but I thought they were actually doing two different tournaments, one for the girls, one for the guys. Is it just the girls?
Boy. Well, I don't know. Why have two? Have one for the guys. What does Owen Hart have to do with girl wrestling?
Well, he had his picture taken with Medusa that one time at the Joel Goodhart show.
I forgot about that. All right, in that case, then carry on.
Mike Lano took it.
Well, and I'm sure then, and he probably sold it to 17 people on the theory that at some point, one of these people in this picture would actually be on the fucking video that he's providing the pictures for. Anyway, Bunny against the newly arrived Toni Storm. She stormed out of the WWE, went home, and now she's here in AEW. So apparently she didn't hate wrestling. She just hated the people she was wrestling for. And it's nice to see her. And it'll be nice to see her for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And then she'll be in the witness protection program with Ruby Soho. And And again, she just came off of WWE television, and there's Sockface blathering about, oh, she's been a multiple-time Stardom champion. And for the folks who don't know what Stardom is, and that's a lot of you, that's one of the girls' indie promotions in Japan. So she literally just came off American national television, 3 months ago, I guess right before non-compete, whatever, and he's talking about her incredible background in a place that nobody's ever fucking heard of. This was long and the bunny was in it. But at least Toni Storm won. And I guess they had to put it somewhere, so they put it here. But if it was a compliment sandwich, where it was sandwiched in between something we wanted to see, it would have been better, but this continued the downward spiral of the program. And to close, did you have any comments about the bunny and Toni Storm? I'm sorry.
I guess my only thought was what the crowd reaction says, because Toni Storm got a big pop coming out. I mean, everyone does.
They threw babies for Ruby.
Yeah, but especially the first time someone comes out, big pop, and then the crowd died during that match. It was dead silent.
Well, yeah, because it's a rotten match. Because it's the bunny. And also because they followed, hold on, what was it that we just finished talking about? The nonsense with Undisputed Era and Page, Danielson and Yuta, etc. Basically, they're dovetailing to a whimpering conclusion. So, yeah, the people were not. Anyway, main event time. Andre Olio against Darby Allin. And I thought, okay, Andre is usually the shits, but we like Darby. And all of a sudden, Darby skates to the ring and Andre dives over the top rope on top of him and throws him over a table and then onto the table and then face first to the apron. And then suddenly Darby gets up and jumps off the apron and puts his... Here's the thing, this guy's just jumped you and attacked you and has been rattling you around, and you get the upper hand and you got a skateboard in your hand. Instead of just bashing this motherfucker over the head with a skateboard, he jumps off the apron, puts the skateboard under his feet, and lands with the skateboard and his feet on Andre's back, which probably hurt more than if he'd have just taken a nice headshot with the... And then they fight into ringside, and Andre turns the steel stairs over and suplexes Darby onto the steel stairs. And then Darby rolls into the ring and the referee says, "Are you okay?" And they start the match. And that's when they started and I stopped. What the fuck? What'd they do, Brian? What did they do?
You know, I don't even remember. This is kind of, I was checked out by this, but I watched it. If you brought things up, I would remember it and be able to talk about it, but nothing from like the last half hour, 45 minutes of this show stayed with me to the point where I wanted to keep the thought.
It was a mystery to me too. So that was Dynamite.
Andrade is one of the most puzzling people that has a push in wrestling. I know he's talented and people will say, oh, he's great in the ring, and he was certainly...
They do?
There are people that love his matches. There are people that were big fans of him in Lucha Libre as La Sombra, and he was great. And he was. I saw some of those matches. He was great. But this is just terrible. I'm not a fan of him in AEW. Other than laughing at his promos, this is not good.
You know what the thing is? It's that we just don't understand Andre. It's not that he's speaking in English. It's not that he's speaking in Spanish. It's that he's speaking in code, Brian. Because he's got us all fooled. Andre is one of the chosen ones. He's one of the people that are going to be running this world as soon as the final conflict is over with. And only the people who are smart to the code that can run the machines that will be enslaving the humans will be able to come out on top.
That's not how there's going to be no enslaving of the humans by the machines. Let's not start preparing people mentally for that. That's not
well, not all the humans, but the humans that don't know the code, they're not going to be in. They're not going to be figured in. They're going to be the working class. They're going to be sent down to the bowels of the earth to do the work, to provide the machines with the proper feedback so that the masters of the machines can make all the money. And that's where Code Academy comes in.
No.
It doesn't?
I mean, Code Academy can help. Code Academy comes in to help everyone. However, whatever the science fiction world that you're painting here.
I see what you're doing here. I'm not supposed to expose the business and tell everybody, so I'll wink at it. So, folks, here's the deal. You know, it's not going to benefit you. It's not like you would ever need to know these secret codes that run these machines so that when the opportunity arises, you might be able to run the machines that enslave the rest of the humans. And after, you know, a significant change in the current landscape of the global geopolitical situation, a lot of people are going to be underground enslaved by the machines. And the people who program these machines and build them and tell them what to do, we call them the secret ones. Well, now this is just theoretical. This is not true that I'm saying, because we want to keep this on the down low.
This is not true what you're saying. Let's just agree to that outright.
Well, yes, that's
you're
exactly
saying right now has no basis in truth.
That's what we're saying. Wink, wink. None of it is true. I'm just mouthing off. But if you want to be sure, folks, if you don't want to leave anything to chance, you got to learn to code. And Code Academy is the place to do that for you. You can learn at your own pace and get qualified for in-demand jobs such as slave driver and administrative assistant to slave driver.
No!
You can choose what to learn, right? From building basic websites to artificial intelligence, that's a code word, folks, and everything else in between. No matter what your experience level, you'll be writing real working code in minutes like your life depends on it, because chances are it will. You can learn the coding languages that separate us from the lizard people, including Python, HTML, Squall, JavaScript, and more. Not sure where to begin? Most people aren't. Generally, there's somebody here that will point you in the right direction and say, pick up a sledgehammer and get to work. But if you're in with Code Academy, you don't have to do manual labor. No. You're just pushing buttons. And you're taking a personality quiz so you can get tailored career advice and course recommendations based on your strengths and interests and how you're assigned by C4D2, the memory machine. Get instant feedback. Like, fuck off! We're full! But they're never full at Code Academy because your code is tested as soon as you and they always need more bodies. More people. Feed me more. That's what Code Academy says, because the people that flunk out of these courses, they get sent right down to the boiler room and they're chained to a wall of fire forevermore. So they want people to be, but build your portfolio and get a certificate of completion to make yourself more marketable to future employers. One of these days, there will be a revolution. We'll take the world back from machines, and then you're fixed. You're set up. You're one of the chosen people. Land your dream job in web development, programming, computer science, data science, slave driving, and tons more.
No, will you stop with the slave driving? There'll be nothing to do with slavery with the fine people at Code Academy.
That's right, because when you learn to code with Code Academy, you can be independent, your own boss. Join the over 50 million people learning to code with Code Academy and see where coding can take you. And get 15% off your Code Academy Pro membership when you go to codecademy.com and use the promo code EXPERIENCE. That's promo code EXPERIENCE at codecademy.com. If I said Code Academy enough, codecademy.com, promo code EXPERIENCE, 15% off. And all the nuclear fire showers that you want. Well, should we move now to the other side of the promotional fence and talk about SmackDown from Friday night, because this was the last television opportunity, network television that the WWE had to spring us a surprise, juice up WrestleMania, what the fuck? Or had they just given up and decided to give us an infomercial? And I think they woke up and chose infomercial, to paraphrase what the kids say on Twitter. Could you believe this was a network television program? It goes to show you that all the big stars had to be in the packages because their regular roster is just there to fill in the blanks. Is that what it seemed like to you?
I had in my office the Ring of Honor pay-per-view on one monitor and SmackDown on another, so I can kind of watch thoroughly one and keep up with the other one to go back and see whatever I missed. And I kept waiting for the action to happen on SmackDown, and nothing other than McAfee and Vince and Theory. There was really nothing of note to me.
Well, we have to bless the people that invented videotape, those Ampex folks, because I enjoyed the tape. The Andre the Giant Battle Royal package, we saw an Andre package. It was great, footage from the days gone by, of course, with a voiceover set after a 15-year undefeated streak. But nevertheless, we know they rewrite some history. And then they had the Andre the Giant Battle Royal with just a bunch of guys in the ring. You couldn't tell. I'm sure there was a top guy there, but it looked like a bunch of middle card guys. And then Ciampa and Rude and Ziggler. Ciampa was already in there. Rude and Ziggler got an entrance. So the NXT champion was in this. And, all the others pretty much were already tainted goods, but Ciampa is just apparently leaving NXT to join the main roster or possibly to run away from home. I don't know. And Rude and Ziggler have invigorated themselves over the last few weeks, at least in NXT. So you bring them in and put them in a battle royal on free television with mid-card guys, and they don't even win it. So NXT, bye. Michael Cole, in the middle of the commentary on this, just came out and said, oh, and by the way, later on tonight on the Hall of Fame, Rick Steiner, Braun Breaker's father, will be inducted in the Hall of Fame, when they were talking about NXT. Just like that. They didn't say this. They went out of their way to do everything but say that Braun Breaker is Rick Steiner's son since he debuted. And then instead of doing any kind of emotional reveal, whether it's the old man gets jumped and beat up and the son has to come to the rescue, or just the son announces who he really is after a major triumph because he wanted to do it on his own and not trade on the family name, they just have the announcer drop it in commentary. That would have been the first time that they've said that on their television, right? We've been waiting for it. It ain't come.
I don't know if they've said it before or not, actually.
I don't think they have. They will say everything but. The other night they called Braun Breaker with a Frankensteiner and made some allusion to being familiar with that move or something. They've beat around the bush. They've never said it. And then they just come out with it because the Hall of Fame, well, didn't they plan ahead?
I will just say, and we'll get to the Hall of Fame when we get to the Hall of Fame, but that certainly was the opportunity for him to say, I've been Braun Breaker. I wanted to do it on my own, but I am a Steiner, and that's my name going forward. But they didn't do that.
They didn't do that. So in the Battle Royal, old Mosh Pit Jones dumped Finn Balor to win the thing. Yay! Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on.
That's fitting for Mosh.
Yeah. The next match was a triple threat match for the Intercontinental title. Ricochet is the Intercontinental champion. Of course, he just got beat flat in the middle in about a minute and a half the other night, right?
By Austin Theory.
But he's the Intercontinental champion. But in this situation, he was in a triple threat match against both members of Los Lotharios, and Jose wasn't one of them. So the two tag team partners are in a triple threat match against the one guy that's smaller than each one of them, but somehow he beat both of them. So he's got that going for him. And then we get to the Owens and Austin package, and that's what I'm talking about. All these packages were better for selling WrestleMania or anything else than the actual live program was, because Steve Austin, for reasons we've mentioned, they couldn't have him come out before WrestleMania. So you see Austin here, you hear him talk. Another thing we're missing is grown men with grown men's voices. You hear Steve Austin talk, you pay attention. Then, oh my God, Naomi and Sasha wrestled Carmella and Zelina, but they also introduced Baszler and Natalya and Ripley and Morgan at the same time, because they're in a four-way, and they did some shit. I don't know what the fuck. But they did a they didn't do a training video. They were in the WrestleMania hotel. It's a hotel exhibition room or ballroom or whatever. You can tell by the walls, and they set a ring up, and they've got Ronda Rousey training with Shayna Baszler. Great, another MMA fighter. We saw 7 seconds of that, and then got a short, lackluster promo from Rousey, and then no more training. But then they did a package, and with the ability to edit, and, you know, Rousey and Charlotte made both look like the biggest female stars in the business, which they are. The package was great. Don't let Ronda talk. And we've apparently come to this now. Don't let Charlotte then comes out to do a live promo, and she's a better heel than half the men and all of the women in the business. And she did a great live promo and just took the piss out of all the people there. But as long as Ronda doesn't speak and we see her in edited form, this is a titanic confrontation. But again, the package was better than the show. And then they followed that up with the Lesnar and Reigns package. And I wrote, I feel bad for the people that bought a ticket to the live event, but actually the packages are better than what they're watching in the ring. So Austin and Owens, Lesnar and Reigns, Charlotte and Rousey, great packages. Brian, don't you wish you had a great package?
I've got a spectacular package, from what I've heard, from what I hear.
Well, you can see, you're allowed to see your own.
I'm not going to judge myself.
Make you weird if you
I'm not going to judge myself.
Well, you judge your own programs. Why don't you judge your own package?
Yeah, you got me there.
You
got me there.
I got you in the package.
Well, you wish.
What about Austin Theory coming out and attacking Pat McAfee?
I don't know. I mean, I can't complain too much about Austin Theory and McAfee. It's one of the few things I've actually not been completely bothered by, and it led to an interesting reaction backstage with Vince.
Well, that was the funny part, is that Theory comes out at ringside, attacks McAfee, dumps him when he's up on the table dancing, and for Shaky Nakamura. And he trips him and knocks him down on the table, and then McAfee rolls over and starts chasing him, and they run into the back, and there's a camera waiting on him. And then Austin Theory runs right into Vince's office, and it says Mr. McMahon. So McAfee comes up short of the door, turns around, walks a couple steps, thinks better of it, turns back around, boots the door open, and there's Vince. Comes out, and McAfee looks like he's seen a ghost. Well, I know, yes, you don't want to fuck with the boss, but you just kicked the door open of the guy's office. You would think he would come out and say, "Who the hell do you think you are?" Which is what he said. And he runs McAfee off, and then there's Austin Theory behind him. Yeah. You know, it was more fun than the matches. They started out with Usos against Shaky and Booger. And that went to a break. And then when they came back on the other side of it, they'd made it a 6-man with Theory and Balor. And at that point, I started watching for Theory, but it got long and not really that interesting, so I stopped watching for Theory. Booger did a great spot where he gut-wrenched Theory, but instead of suplexing him, he liked the Iron Sheik clubs back and forth over and over again. And they went to another break, and they came back and had more match. And finally, Balor made a comeback on Theory, but Theory crotched him on the top rope and hit his finish 1, 2, 3. So he got to beat Finn again. He's beat Finn, He's 3-1 now. He's beat Finn 3 times. Finn's only beat him once. I think we've seen enough of it, though.
That's what WWE does. They make you sick of the match that you've seen. You see it over and over and over again.
As opposed to AEW, which always does different matches, and they almost all look exactly the same. Interesting. Anyway, and the main event, I don't know what the main event actually was, because with 10 minutes left on SmackDown, I swear to God, this is all they showed us. What I've just said to you. 10 minutes left on the air, Happy Corbin and Mosh Pit were in the ring with a Happy Talk segment. And I'm out. I can't. So who was on Happy Talk? Did you pay attention or care?
Oh, by that point, I was totally watching the Ring of Honor pay-per-view event.
Which we will talk about as our main event, since that was the high point of the week so far. Closing SmackDown thoughts on the go-home show for WrestleMania. That I guarantee you 25 years ago, Vince McMahon would have had us chained to the wall and not allowed us to leave his home until we had a better WrestleMania go-home television program than that. What'd you think?
It sucked.
But I'll tell you what doesn't suck. What doesn't suck is the idea that Mosh Pit Jones and Happy Corbin could have a new career in auto parts sales.
Huh. Never thought of that before.
I'm thinking they're perfectly suited for auto parts sales because, of course, they're not wrestlers. But, folks, we don't need to find an auto parts salesman because we already got one. The folks at rockauto.com. Convenient self-service. They've got parts for everything, every make, every model, cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, planes, helicopters, bicycles, tricycles, unicycles, coupes, conveyances, and carriages. No matter what you're riding in, if it's got a wheel and it moves, rockauto.com has a part just for it. Not like these brick and mortar stores, they carry 3 blinkers and a tail light. No, at rockauto.com, they've got everything, all the multiple mini parts that they make for all these varieties of models. They've got everything, folks, and it's the cheapest parts that your car will ever need because they don't jack these things up. They're reliably low, the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. You can get everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and carpet. Did I tell you that I've just recently carpeted the office with carpet from rockauto.com?
You did not tell me that, no.
Oh, it's amazing. It's beautiful. But the problem is I just can't figure out where to put the cup holder. But anyway, folks, if you go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, you can write JCE in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. You're one of the family. You're a member of the cult of Cornette. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com.
That's right.
I feel like fixing a car right now.
Go do it.
I wonder, I might just start hammering on the Framistat.
All right.
Anyway, what's next? At least we can get away from the modern wrestling. Because, of course, immediately following SmackDown was the WWE Hall of Fame. And I got to admit, they did a great turnaround job. SmackDown goes off the air at 10 o'clock, and by 10:15, they've got the talent set up in chairs on the stage. They've redressed the ring. to more of a platform podium type of thing, and they were ready to switch over. But what I couldn't understand, did you watch the thing from the start, the first 15 minutes?
I think so for the most part. During the pre-show switchover, I kind of went outside and smoked a joint. But other than that,
hey,
I saw most of it. Hey, what? It's legal. What's your problem?
What in the heck? Well, we don't want to act like we're encouraging the kids to do the.
I'm not encouraging the kids to do the heroin or whatever it is you think. No.
You know what? By the way, did you see these fucking Republican assholes? These tight ass, stick up their ass motherfuckers. 202 of 205 of them in the House voted against decriminalizing and marijuana and blah, 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 because they're saying, well, we don't want people selling drugs to the kids. It was like an episode of Dragnet from 1968 with Jack Webb and Harry Morgan, where the girl left the baby in the bathtub because she was stoned. He drowned.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is, do we think that there's going to be more kids smoking because they're going to go, well, now it's legal. So now, I'll give you a break. If you want it, you can get it. Anytime, any place.
Yeah, it's
especially
not
if you're me.
Like it, it's not like it would be hard either way, but it just, again, the most obnoxiously asshole-ish, backwards, stick in the mud, people that you wouldn't want to be around. Anyway, nevertheless, speaking of people you wouldn't want to be around, all the people on the pre-show, because they knew they were going to have some time. So they got Cole and McAfee there at ringside, and McAfee can talk his ass off. He was vaccinated with a phonograph needle. But they've got 18 million hosts and interviewers. They go back to, in the back, Maria Menouno and Kayla Braxton, Corey Graves, Brian Saxton or Byron Allen.
I believe her name is Maria Menouno. It's not Maria Menouno, and it's not Byron Allen. I can tell you that.
It's Maria Menouno, right? No? What? I'm serious.
It's Maria Menounos.
Menounos?
I believe
that doesn't sound right.
Now you got me questioning myself. Hold on.
It's Maria Menouno.
No, you see, I was right. Maria Menounos.
Oh, what kind of name is Menounos?
I think it's Greek. Probably, if I had to guess.
That's Greek to me. But anyway, they had a nice package on the inductees with the NFL voiceover guy, but they kept going back to the hosts, and it was blathering. It was meaningless chatter. You couldn't have had Cole and McAfee pitch to the actual host, Kayla and Corey Graves, and then had them pitch to a really fantastic 8 or 9 minute VTR package that they've pre-produced to cover the rest of the time for changing the set, and then come back to the host to give it the intro. I don't know. And the Hall of Fame package through the years. They had a couple of nice packages, but there was a lot of blather in the middle. And did you see? Okay, Maria Menouno. Johnny Boo Boo. What the moo? What? I'm doing a sitcom from the 60s, and I can't remember what it was. But anyway, Maria interviewed Glenn Jacobs. Is he shrinking? Because he's standing next to, who was it? Byron Saxton. I don't know how tall he is, but he didn't have more than 6 inches on Maria. If that. It was jarring. Or maybe she's in high heels. But how high can her heels be? What is it? Is this woman playing the WNBA? Menudo Mania?
No, it's not Menudo once again, but no, I believe she's just, average maybe 5'7", 5'8" at the most.
Well, then somebody has Glenn Jacobs has had a shinectomy. They've taken his shins out because he's shorter than he used to be. But anyway, I'm watching on the cock, right? And Michael Cole says, ladies and gentlemen, the Hall of Fame starts now at, what was it, 12:15 a.m. It says the Hall, no, it was 10:15 a.m.
That's right. It wasn't that late yet.
Yeah, I'd be up later. 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time. The Hall of Fame starts now, and Peacock goes to 3 minutes of commercials. So that was a bait and switch pitch. Again, all of their cold open, the clips, the sound bites, all that stuff is good. I miss Jerry Lawler as the host of the Hall of Fame. I mean, Kayla Braxton, Corey Graves wrestled at one point. Kayla Braxton just looks like she wandered in from a casting call for hand models.
Oh, she's fine. She does a good job.
But they'd look great on a game show. This is a wrestling Hall of Fame show. I want to hear Jerry Lawler with some fucking zingers. Nevertheless.
He was probably afraid someone would come up and slap him.
And right there, that would have been great. If they'd have got Jim Carrey, who's pissed at Will Smith, to come over and fucking slap Lawler like Lawler slapped him when they remade the movie about Lawler slapping Kaufman.
That's funny.
I'm getting slap happy. So the Steiners were first. And they did the package. And actually, I was reminded of something that I didn't remember until I heard it. Did you hear my audio? And they carefully edited around me with Yoko and with other places, other people. But my audio was in a lot of the Steiners because it was WCW footage, and I was doing the commentary with Jim Ross on a lot of these programs. But did you hear my audio on the interview?
I believe so. I remember you a few times, especially during the Vader one, too.
Well, the one that I make mention of it because I'd forgotten this. The interview that I did with the Steiners on the Clash of Champions, it was, I don't know if it was Fall Brawl, but it was the fall of 1989, was where he first named the Frankensteiner.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, of course.
Because you hear me asking, wow, that's a fantastic move you got there. What do you call it? Because I was doing a Louisville Slugger segment with the Steiners that night. Was that earlier the night when we were in Troy, New York? Was it November or was it more like August-ish in Columbia, South Carolina? It was one of the two of those. But nevertheless, I asked him what he called because we had set that up because earlier in the day, I can't remember whether we asked him what he called it or he had come to me and said, hey, what do you think about this? But he came up with it. We're going to call it the Frankensteiner. I said, that's great. I said, so I'll ask you in the interview tonight what you call it. So that was the first time that was mentioned on the air, that they got that little clip. Anyway, and then they bring Braun Breaker out. Now the mystery is over, but I mean, it wasn't any mystery. And now you see, he looks just like him. He looks just fucking like his father and wrestled just like his father. And when he came out, Braun in the suit and, got in the ring and started talking, I closed my eyes and I hear Rick Steiner's voice in the locker room. Not like doing a promo, just his real voice.
It's funny because I heard Scott more than even Rick.
Really?
Yeah, especially because Scott was the first one to get on the mic when the brothers came out. And if you were not looking at the monitor, it sounded like Braun was still on the mic.
Well, I know the quality that Scott has, that Kenny like that in it a little bit, right? But Braun has Rick's cadence and delivery, I think, to me. But they're all close. It's not like the Rick and Scott are not like Dory and Terry. They have resemblances in a variety of places. I noticed that Rick has gone bald, poor fella, but he should have used the keeps. That's a free one. Anyway, he introduced the Steiners. Braun did with the joke about, putting his Uncle Scott on the live microphone, which was great. I'm not sure exactly why that Scott's story about Randy Savage and the cow calling contest made the cut as the best story that he could tell at the Hall of Fame. But then again, sometimes these things just come off the top of Scotty's head. But for Scott, that was a heartfelt speech. And he came out, he didn't have any notes. I saw they did have a teleprompter. I know for a fact there's a teleprompter there. Whether everybody was using it or not, I can't say. Rick pulled notes out of his pocket, and by the time Scott got finished, Scott didn't have any notes, but Rick didn't have any time. He said, "Thanks for leaving me 1 minute." But he did a nice close. But that I would have liked to have seen them go a little longer, just from some of the other things that we got before we got to the main event of the evening. But otherwise, that was a good way to start everything off. Everybody, I think the universal agreement, Steiner's belong in any kind of Hall of Fame. So it wasn't a controversial pick, and it helps get one of their biggest new star, the star of the future, over. So I like that segment immensely.
It was really nice to see. Obviously, this was the opportunity to change Braun Breaker's name and officially make him a Steiner, and they decided not to do that.
But at least they acknowledged the relationship, and now it just makes it look all stupider in front of the fans. Well, if he's Rick Steiner's son, why is his name Breaker? But otherwise.
One of my favorite tag teams ever. They were just so dynamic, and I'm really happy to see them get this from WWE. I never thought it would happen. It's weird seeing what I can only describe as a vulnerable Scott Steiner.
Yes. Yeah, you can tell that he wasn't just jacking off about the whole thing. He was happy to be there and was into it. And sort of, genuine.
The only thing I could think was, and I'm sure it wasn't it, but when it first happened, I was like, oh, Scott Steiner on open mic, what would he do? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is talk about the Macho Man. I mean, what way to piss off Vince. But it was nice. It was nice to see them honored. It was nice to see, I realized, because, you hear a lot of fans talk about the WWE Hall of Fame or other Hall of Fames, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or other Wrestling Hall of Fames. And they'll say, oh, what does it really mean? Who votes for it? It's stupid. It's this and that. But for the guys, it means something. And I think for certain guys, it may hit them that in a way, this is their public goodbye.
Yeah. From
a big stage. So it was nice to see the Steiners for what I assume will be one last time on a national stage.
Well, I can't think that now that they have acknowledged the relationship that they're not going to do something at least with Rick, even if Scott maybe, may not be trustworthy in their eyes or whatever. But they've got to do something with Rick when there's going to be some angle at some point where somebody needs to get heat on Braun without beating that kid up and making him vulnerable. And there comes the dog-faced gremlin to the rescue, I think. They'll be crazy if they don't do it. Anyway, coming up next, now we go to the female side of things. We've gone over this. Queen Sharmell. Nice lady, pretty, smart, easy to work with. Great person, did what she did well. Hall of Fame? I don't want it to be like I'm being sexist or whatever, but I just, and when Booker inducted her, and it's kind of like he's in. He mentioned not only is he in as a single, but then he and his brother are in as Harlem Heat, and now his wife is in. What did he get the family plan? Well,
maybe Greg Gagne signed him to a deal.
But I just that took a second. And Eddie Auger. So, point being, again, I like Sharmell and enjoyed working with her and being around her, but I think back to when they wouldn't let Pat Patterson induct Ray Stevens in San Francisco. And I'm just, so, okay, and this went more than 4 minutes. Steiner said they had 4 minutes to talk. This went more than 4 minutes, but nevertheless, here's what I took away from this segment and the previous segments in the show so far. I wish instead of thanking Vince, they would ban the words entertain, entertainer, and character and from the entire program, because it just goes through, flames my ass every time. They stick it in where it's not even necessary to make sure that everybody knows that this whole thing's phony. And we've been pulling your all's leg all this time. It's more Academy Awards than Sports Hall of Fame ceremony. Entertain, entertainer, and character. Sorry.
You don't have to apologize to me. And by the way, what a good-looking woman.
Oh,
not you, Charmel. Charmel.
Wait, what? Oh, sure, we're going back to Charmel.
I'm talking about you in '84 in Mid-South.
Yeah, well, when I dressed up that time and hit Ricky Morton in the head with a purse with a brick in it. All right, and next up, I am not going to in any way criticize, because you can't, the Warrior Award recipient Shad Gaspard or any segment involving the footage of him, his family's acceptance, whatsoever, the package that and I guess now with the cell phones and the smartphones and everything, you just have video of just all your mundane daily life things, because that's what this was. And it would have been about as exciting as watching somebody's, home movies from their vacation, except for what happened. And then now it transformed it into they've got all this footage of him and his son training together and playing together and talking to each other like that. And it was just fucking heartbreaking. That, because you can tell that story, but I mean, think about it. Until all of the cell phone, everybody's got a camera in their pocket now, almost everybody except me. Nobody really you had home video from people that got cameras in the 80s and 90s, but nobody had extensive home video like that you could put something like that together. You never knew you would need video like that until something like that happens. And then that was a real, package of real video, not staged, put together in a professional way, but not any kind of work like you usually see on any kind of television program. And it just made you feel so sorry for that guy and for his family and etc. And so that was fantastic. But the problem I had, they couldn't have had, like Jason, JTG, his partner, Shad's partner, or one of the boys that was close friends with Shad and his family present this award. They had to have, and after that package, and everybody's teared up, and out comes Dana Warrior, that shrieking right-wing harpy twat, to the Ultimate Warrior's music. You went from, oh my God, this is heartbreaking, to I can't believe they're doing this now. And she is a public speaker on the par with her husband, because this was fucking rotten. She had written and or memorized or was reading from a teleprompter something that sounded good to her, but nobody understood what the fuck she was saying. She's a horrible public speaker. And this pissed me off for Shad Gaspard that he didn't have a better induction. Am I being too hard on it?
It would have been nice for Shad Gaspard to have a better induction, but the reason they created this award was to have Dana Warrior come out there each year and do this.
Well, then they need to rethink their fucking original idea. Because she's not a good speaker. Didn't have anything to do with these people. And she's worse than her husband on the we don't want to see this fucking list. But then his wife and son accepted. It took me a second, because in all the pictures and everything, she had dark black hair. And suddenly she's platinum blonde. So I was like, wait a minute, what? I had to back up. Did I miss something?
I thought it was Dana Brooke for a second.
It was closer than the pictures that we saw, but nevertheless. She did a nice speech for a non-public speaker. She had her son there, and of course we can't criticize or critique his wife's speech in a situation like this. I'm sure she was nervous, but she wasn't a public speaker like some of these people aren't, but she did a good job. I heard one time there was a survey, this was years ago, that more people in America were afraid of speaking in public than death. Have you ever heard that?
I haven't heard that specific stat, but it makes some sense.
It was more people. This was the takeaway from the poll. More people are afraid of speaking in public than death. And I'm like, I'll take the risk on door number one. But anyway, besides for having to look at another camera hog member of the Hellwig family, this was very nice and I thought deserved. And a lot of people were saying they should have done it last year. I guess last year's was already set or whatever. Are we moving on?
Let's move on. I agree with you. There's nothing really to be added to that, but it's nice that they honored Chad Gaspard. It's nice that his son got to experience this.
And then, speaking of sons, another son and wife were accepting this one, the next induction, the man they call Vader. What time is it? I've told this before. It may have been a long time ago on the podcast. Haven't done it in a while, but you know Vince hated that, right? What time is it?
No, I didn't know he hated that. No.
It was January 1996, right? That Vader came in. We were in California, and his first night in, he does the thing. I can't even remember. He had a match, but then, and I can't remember who he wrestled. But then we did the angle with Monsoon, right? Where he beat up Gorilla Monsoon and got suspended so he could go have what we thought was going to be brief shoulder surgery, blah, blah, blah. But nevertheless, this was back before the days where there was any kind of a script or anything written specifically. And besides, if there would have been a script, I was the one that was writing them. Me and Bruce Pritchard, we were the writing team. So the deal is I'm supposed to go out, and nobody knows because it's before widespread internet, and we actually kayfabed shit back then, so nobody knew in the arena that night that Vader was going to make his debut. So I'm going to go out, and I'm going to do a big build-up and a big intro, and then here comes Vader down to the ring, and then we do all the stuff we're going to do. So, of course, Vince has never seen Vader wrestle or on television because he'd only been on WCW and, you know, every other promotion in the world except Vince's. And he didn't know it's Vader time. He didn't know what time is it. He didn't know the V hand signal. He didn't know any of this shit. But of course I do because I've been watching him on WCW for 5 fucking years. So I go out and I start the big build-up, and just when I get to what time is it like that, then you hear the people, oh shit, it's Vader. And it was a surprise to him. It's time, and I make the symbol, it's Vader time. And they hit the music, and here he comes, and the place is blowing the babies, right? Because, oh shit, this is a WCW former world champion. We didn't know he was coming. You can imagine it'd be the same thing today, only they'd know ahead of time. They'd still cheer. After the segment was over with whatever, Vince said, don't do that. What? It's time thing. What? They were cheering him. I said, well, he didn't want, and I understand this in some respect, and I'll tell you where I differentiate. He didn't want the people cheering a heel. Well, I don't either. But I also knew that because of the magnitude of this promotional switch from WCW to WWF, and the guy's never been here, and everybody knows who it is, and he's coming in as himself, the place is going to blow because they're seeing a happening. And so that's why I said, Vince, I said, they're happy he's here. Now we're going to piss him off. But he was, oh, no, don't do the, it's time, and don't, they're cheering that. He'd never seen it before, so he didn't know. He may have thought we came up with it that night and it got the wrong reaction.
Did Vader know that you and Jimmy Del Rey were doing his thing in Smoky Mountain where you would get on the rope and do the V? I say, who's the man? Who's the man?
I don't think we mentioned that to Leon. But that was on our own time. But anyway, so the Vader package, and my voice is in some of that, a brief flash of my face. I think they're trying to steal, because I called them at one time about the royalties on the World's Greatest Manager DVD. I think they're trying to keep me from getting sick and Stephen P. New on them. But Vader's son Jesse and Vader's wife Debbie, I think his mother, Jesse's mother, obviously, they accepted for him. And I got to be honest, the women's dresses and high heels it took 15 minutes for everybody to get to the ring. Did you see that? I don't know how they walk in these things. But Jesse was good and fairly personable. So that was a fairly high point. But at that point, did you realize we're ready for the main event? They have given up on making the Hall of Fame a star-studded marquee ticket-selling event on its own. And that's why they maybe just kind of shipped it in after SmackDown, because...
Well, you are limited somewhat. If you have to contractually do a Friday Night Live SmackDown on TV and you're doing 2 nights of WrestleMania and you have NXT, when else are you going to do it?
Well, fuck. Sunday morning's open, isn't it? They could do church service and Hall of Fame.
It's kind of what the Hall of Fame is. But okay.
But anyway, it just in years past it was more, but yeah, you're right there. And it's not like we should be asking for more programming at this point. But it is time for our main event on the Hall of Fame. And let's be honest, I liked the Steiner's introduction. I liked all the introductions. They were nice, but people would have been pissed if this had not been the main event, don't you think?
Oh, there was nothing else that even compared to this.
Yeah.
In the history of their Hall of Fame, there may be no one else who would have been above The Undertaker. I mean, he's one of their favorites.
Well, besides
and
that,
deserving.
Yeah. And just besides that, this saved it, and that late at night, and nobody cared. I mean, what was it? 1:45 for real, he came out. And he overstayed the time that I'm sure that they had allotted him, and that was a good thing too, because actually they should have just induct the Undertaker in the Hall of Fame, and the show would have been shorter, and everybody would still been as happy.
So how long do you think Mark Callaway's been working on this public speaking routine? Because it seemed like there were parts of this that were absolutely about wrestling for a wrestling audience. I'm in the Hall of Fame. And there were parts of this that were, I'm taking this on the road.
Yeah, it was a dry run. We're working it out in Scranton before we take it on the road.
TED Talk with The Undertaker.
But, well, first of all, the great package again. We've talked about all these men's packages. They all have great packages. And then here comes Vince to do the induction. And he controlled the walk a little bit. He had a little swagger, but it wasn't like it was over the top. Has he lost weight to you?
Well, yeah, he's an older man. I think he has shrunk a little in height and also lost weight, yeah.
But I've never seen Vince looking like a normal person. He looks more like his father facially than ever, and his voice has gotten gruffier. But in some parts here, he was reading a teleprompter. You could tell, and especially when he rattled off all those names of Taker's opponents. Brian Lee got a mention. And then Vince tried to explain it. He wouldn't say fake Undertaker. He said faux Undertaker. The faux Undertaker. By the way, do you know what a faux diamond is, Brian?
What's a faux diamond?
That was a question that was asked on a TV show I saw years ago. One of the Man in the Street interview. They're trying to find out if people know what a faux diamond. Obviously, it's a phony. It's a fake. It's FAUX, faux diamond, like faux news. Somebody said, "Is that a diamond with faux corners?" So anyway. But Vince got off the teleprompter and brightened up when he started talking about Shotgun Saturday Night. Did you see that in his face? He still loves that show.
Yeah, he's got 8 memories, and whoever scripted this for him, whoever wrote this, because he didn't write this, they knew exactly what little anecdotes to go to.
Well, and again, you can tell when Vince's face brightens when he has a fond memory, and he loved that Fakakta program. To sound like Finkel. That was a shitty program, but he loved the flying nuns and me taking the Mexican midget in the bathroom at the bus station and trying to lift him up so he could use the urinal, and the Terry Funk and the, craziness at the saloon and all this stuff. But he loved that TV show. And it was true. What he said was true. They just, in those days, that was 1997, they just took a camera guy and an audio guy and Vince and, whoever the talent was. And I'd be there, Bruce would be there. And we just shoot shit in New York fucking City with no permission whatsoever. And there was, at one point, that's when Taker gave Triple H the tombstone on the escalator at what? You're the New York expert. What location was that? The bus terminal, the Port Authority? Where was it?
Oh, I actually thought it was the Amtrak side of Penn Station, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, well, Penn State. See, we were in all these places. And, and we just showed up and there's a camera. Now they might shoot us. They'd think some kind of fucking terrorism was going on or something.
Give Triple H credit. I would never, ever even consider taking a tombstone on an escalator.
On an escalator.
That's insane.
And not even the up escalator, but the down escalator.
Imagine if his hair got caught in that thing.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, they tried to what, Vince? And he fucking shut him up. Did you see that?
I did.
That was good. So anyway, he introduces The Undertaker, and here comes the entrance, and now the people are popping. Because think about it, it's midnight, and they've been in the building since 7 o'clock to watch the Smackdown show that we just talked about, and this Hall of Fame. So, okay, we've got it now. The main event is here. Big standing ovation. I still get goosebumps on that intro. I got goosebumps laying in my bed, watching this on television. I got goosebumps on my arms because I remember when you would stand in the ring in a major arena. And this is one of the first programs that I was in when I got to WWF, right? Was Yoko and Undertaker, and standing in the middle of the ring in one of those NBA arenas for a television or a pay-per-view with the Undertaker's entrance and the flashing lights and the lightning and all that shit. That was some cool shit. You would get goosebumps. And he carried that off. It was nobody else could have got away with that. But he had the people in the palm of his hand. Anyway, he had when he got in the ring, he had the headset microphone on so he could walk around. And I didn't know, like you said, I didn't know that he was going to audition a motivational speaking thing, but I thought that's brilliant because he doesn't need to be static and stand there. This is what they've waited to see. So he needed to be able to open up and talk to all the people. And the standing ovation and the chants, "You deserve it," and "Thank you, Taker," just took forever, and he drank them all in. And he became pretty much Mark Callaway right away. And in the past, I would have said, and I think I have even said, why ever break that character, break that kayfabe, show your real self? It was so magic. But he's done now, even though there was a tease, he's done now. There was a reason for it. He did a fantastic job of it. And also, to be honest, that's what those people paid for. They won't remember anything else about the matches or maybe a few things with the Hall of Fame, but they're going to remember that for the first time ever in the history of ever, not The Undertaker, but Mark Callaway talked to them like a person for an hour. That has never happened before, and I wish I could say it'll never happen again, then it'd be unique. But I have a feeling, like you said, we're going to see some more of it. But maybe not in a wrestling venue. So Brian, here's another trivia question. Who was the first person to book Mark Callaway on national television?
Jim Cornette, Kevin Sullivan, or Ric Flair?
Well, actually, I was going to leave off Kevin and Ric Flair.
I knew you were. I was giving the team credit.
Because honestly and truthfully, And I'll give Dutch Mantell an asterisk also, but honestly and truthfully, I booked Mark because we needed the skyscraper, and I've forgotten which one was it. It was Sid that got hurt. He replaced Sid. We needed a skyscraper, and I told Rick, they got a 7-foot guy in Memphis I can call Dutch Mantell, and Rick just said, okay, if you think he'll fit, if Dutch says he's okay, do it. So I actually booked him. Bye, Cracky. But anyway, so he started the speech with the story of some of his brother's advice where he was down on his luck and his brother advised him to follow his dream. And then we got the mental signature moves that apparently are going to be a part of his motivational tour. But the first one was no surprise. How many times have I said that? That's Vince McMahon's favorite statement. Perception is reality. And in this case, it was about people perceiving that Mark was an asshole because the job guy fucked up and he beat him up or whatever. But that's what Vince will say. That's what Bruce will say. That's what everybody that's been around Vince McMahon for any amount of time will say. And it's actually, you can kind of see it now in modern life. Vince has been ahead of the curve. It's true. It's not what's factual and what is real. It's what people think is real and factual that they believe. Perception is reality. He mentioned everybody. Stephanie was the little sister he never wanted. Godfather. They mentioned Yokozuna, the whole Bone Street crew. Bryan Adams, he was very close friends with. He teared up over that. Paul Bearer, Glenn, obviously. Thanks some of the legends. He mentioned Perry Jackson, Action Jackson, right? Helped him out when Buzz Sawyer fucked him. He even mentioned Bruce, Terry Anderson, the seamstress, his team of doctors, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, his family. No Mick Foley. Do you think he glossed over it, or is there something going on there? Or did he just think he did, but he didn't?
Well, there are a lot of guys he didn't thank. He didn't thank you. He didn't thank Paul Heyman. He didn't thank...
Well,
did he thank Dutch?
He didn't mention Dutch.
I mean, there's a lot of guys. He thanked pretty much people in the room. Hey, Glenn and Triple H and Shawn.
But Undertaker and Mick Foley.
I agree. I would think if he was going to go through a list of his most memorable opponents, Mick Foley would have to be on top of that list for that one match alone.
He should have thanked Ricky Morton because he said it was advice from his father. I think his father stole it from Ricky Morton because I've heard Ricky say it for 40 years. Be careful about the toes you step on the way up because they may be connected to the ass you got to kiss on the way back down. And then he thanked his wife. His wife is the one that got him into religion. So I'm telling you, Brian, it's these women that will lead a man astray every time. And then he thanked Vince and the WWE Universe. Rest in peace. He starts to leave, and then he looks back, sees one of the outfits. They've got the Undertaker outfits on display there. He goes, he takes the coat, he takes the hat, he puts on the hat, and he says, never say never. Music, and we're out of here. He left it open just in case, because
that was honestly a kiss on the cheek to Vince. That's what Vince wants to hear. Never say never.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that he should necessarily ever wrestle again or even do a cinematic match. But you can't mean to tell me that Undertaker, in a few years at WrestleMania as an enforcer, as a, not necessarily a referee, but as someone brought onto the scene to make sure that the playing field is level or that all things are equal or whatever. That's the equivalent of what they've done this year with Austin. So I would hope that maybe once in a few years at WrestleMania, we will see, just to get a chance to wave at him again. Something like that. But it was a hell of a speech. He went for an hour. And for a guy I don't know that I've ever heard Taker talk that much in person, not on television. He's not a braggadocious nor a loquacious individual. He a man of few words and says what he means, right? It's not like he can't talk, but he doesn't usually go on to that extent. So this was a first time in the history of history for a lot of things. That made it worth it to me, the whole Hall of Fame thing.
It was nice. I can't really complain about it at all. It was nice. I actually like the setup. I like the idea they have the talent. Although, you got to separate who's feuding, but they have the talent up there watching, and I like the idea of everyone getting that one last entrance. You're coming down the aisle. It's pretty cool. I liked it.
Well, and at least nobody hit the ring or the stage or the podium like they did a few years ago. Because I don't know what would happen this time. FTR's not there to bail them out.
That's right.
But, Brian, it is, I guess, the end of an era. Somebody that has been at the top of the mountain in professional wrestling for so long, an icon, a megastar, that now all we got is the memories. How are we going to remember The Undertaker, you say? How are we going to commemorate what he has meant to us, ladies and gentlemen? I say to you, oil painting. That's what I say to you. Not plastics, but oil painting. Because, folks, you're not going to have The Undertaker to kick around on a regular basis anymore, so you've got to remember him. And I think that the perfect way would be make that memory last forever. Turn to paintyourlife.com. If you're making memories on vacations or holidays with the family or friends, you want to turn some of those into art. It's a great idea for a gift for birthdays, anniversaries, weddings. All you got to do is log on to paintyourlife.com, and you can order from a team of world-class artists a professional hand-painted portrait created from any photograph at an affordable price, or combine pictures of people or places that you love into one painting, even if they were in the same place. You can put Mick Foley next to Undertaker at the Hall of Fame and right the wrong that was done to our friend Cactus Jack. You just go and you choose the painting. You work with the artists until every detail is perfect. You can get this picture in as little as 2 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, whether it's friends, loved ones, family, candid photography, I haven't heard of anybody getting turned down for wanting to turn a photograph into a painting. So maybe you could line the walls with paintings that would go into the Playboy Mansion at one point in time. Just depends on what kind of pictures you got in your archives. But the point is, paintyourlife.com, there's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed, and right now is a limited time offer only. You can get 20% off your painting and free shipping if you text the word DRIVE, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. That's DRIVE to 64000. Paint your life. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Message and data rates may apply. Terms apply. Available at paintyourlife.com/terms.
Well, Jim, I believe we do have something on this show called Equal Time, and we can't spend the whole show talking about the world of WWE. There were other things happening on Friday night, in fact.
Yeah, we got to go over to the other side of the fence again because it was wide open as far as a quality wrestling program on Friday night, because SmackDown didn't give us that, except for the packages. So AEW has Rampage at 10 o'clock. Boy, it's WrestleMania weekend. You think they might, all the people watching wrestling, it's on everybody's mind. They might try this week. You'd think that, but they didn't. Dante and Darius Martin were the opening match against the Hardley Boys. And some people, for the kind of people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like, right? But for the first 30 seconds, they started into a ridiculous tumbling routine and doing the same shit as always. It's not like that the Cucamonga Kids ever are going to have any kind of different match. So I skipped that. They had a live interview with Dan Lambert and Scorpio Sky and the other Page and the other Page. They have another Page now, Paige Van Zandt. So they've got Adam Page Ethan Page, the other Page, and now the other Page, Paige Van Zandt, to go along with the cages and the various other things. But this, basically, they were saying the same thing as they always do, but then suddenly Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti, the Bonnie and Clyde of AEW, they're out in the parking lot, Brian. Did you see this program, by the way?
I did see this program. If I could stop you, can I ask you a question?
Yes, you can.
Did you see either the photograph they're talking about or any of the articles that somehow got into newspapers? Because I saw this in the New York Post, this photo of Sammy and Ty Conti in bed with the belt. Did you see this?
I saw it on Twitter.
Okay.
Yes, that somebody was tweeting the clip of the thing there, yes. I honestly, in the past, have used championship belts as props in home photography.
Which is bullshit, because you never won a single championship in your life.
No, but I've owned a few belts for a few, and I've carried a couple of belts home with me to transport them to different places. And let's just say that there was one particular time where I had the actual WWF championship belt in my car and in my home in 1997 to take it to the office to be deposited in the studio where they were going to do a shoot. And I did a little shoot at home the night before with that belt. But I didn't put the pictures on the internet. Anyway, did we get off the track here?
I don't know what track you got on. I've heard of belt marks, but this is ridiculous.
So Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti, the power couple, are in the parking lot, and now Lambert has a BMW. He's not like Page. He didn't come in a Honda Civic with antlers on it. He has a BMW out in the parking lot, but Ty and Sammy have the sledgehammers, and they destroy the BMW in the parking. Have I seen this somewhere lately?
Probably. And you know what? As soon as it started, my first thought was, here's what Dan Lambert should yell out. Call the cops! Why weren't they arrested? What was that? It went on forever. They're just destroying a car in the street with sledgehammers.
And whether it's a sledgehammer or a forklift or who was it that on NXT here a few months ago, they had some type of blunt instruments on everybody beats up the vehicles in the parking lot. I'd rent a car if it was me, and I'd just get the insurance for $15.99 or whatever it is these days, and I'd let Hertz worry about it. Oh, the people over at Hertz. That's the way Dick Beyer used to introduce himself to people when he was the destroyer. He'd stick his hand out. He'd say, "How you doing? Big Dick Hertz." So after that, not after Dick Beyer introduced himself, but after the destruction of the BMW, Hook.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm just going to say one thing, and I could be completely wrong. But how long before the AEW fans get completely sick of Sammy and Ty Conti?
They're already starting to get a little cute, aren't they? When the cuteness goes up, the lovable, crazy baby face goes down, especially now that he's got a girl. Because now he's got a pretty girl. So now some of the male members of the audience, of which that's a majority, that don't have the pretty girl are going to start going, well, that Sammy may not be as great a guy as we thought he was. We're kind of jealous. We'll see. Did you see the Hook promo?
If you can call it that, sure.
So Shivani introduces Hook. Here he is. He's Hook. He's backstage. He's really got a ton of fans. And before Hook says a goddamn word, here comes Danhausen. Have they ever bothered to explain who he is, what he is, why he's there, how he got there, what his mission in life is, or any other, or did they just take a guy that acts in an entertaining way and just stick him on a wrestling program?
See, that's the thing. You watch him and you're like, this guy should be doing something.
Something.
On late night TV or a Svengoolie-like show? Something. But they have not.
Give him a sledgehammer and a watermelon and put him on stage.
Other than the fact that we know he wrestled, and we only know him through wrestling, there's nothing he's done in AEW that has shown you that he's either a wrestler or that he has anything to do with wrestling, other than the fact that one day he just showed up
under the ring,
and now randomly he just pops up at random times, and you still don't even know who he is. It's interesting. Maybe it's next level booking that we just don't quite understand yet. We'll see what happens. Or maybe it's exactly what it seems like, and it's just ridiculous.
I think you've hit on something there with that last one. I think it's exactly what it seems like. Then we were treated to a 6-man tag team match, known in some circles as a trios match, with Pizzeria Uno, Stu Grayson, and Fago del Solo. So the Dork Order +1 against the Blackfellows.
Well, let me stop you right there, because that's a rather inappropriate name. You're talking about the House of Black.
Yeah, all the fellows that's in the House of Black.
The House of
Black and his fellow friends in the House of Black, they're all the Black Fellows.
They're fellows of the House of Black, or the House of Black's fellows.
The Black Fellows.
Not the Black Fellows, the House of Black's fellows.
Well, whichever.
All right.
So that was a match. Then they announced that Wednesday night we get to see FTR versus the Bucks 2. And we're going to talk more about that when we get to the Ring of Honor program, but I'm worried. The next match on national television, by the way, was Jamie Hayter against Sky Blue. And then finally, and this is the reason why I bothered watching the program, because there was what I thought could be a hidden gem in there somewhere. Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs against Keith Lee. And I love Hobbs. I want to see Hobbs. I've gone back and forth on Keith Lee. I want to see what happened here. But Brian, remember, I've talked about this. There are matches that in people's minds, when you say so-and-so versus so-and-so, they know, ooh, I want to see that. And it can be for any number of different reasons. It can be because they're two big giant guys. I want to see the Giants fight, or two guys that are similar in style, or two guys that have something where, I might want to see that. But a good booker understands the difference between the matches that the fans want to see before they see them, and the matches that when the fans see them, they will understand they didn't want to see it as much as they thought they did. And for those matches, you generally try to promote them and book them and give a lead up and a story to them and a reason to them and a build to them, so that at least by the time that the people see the match and they've paid for it in some fashion, when they're slightly disappointed, at least you got them that far. You didn't show them up front for free and for no good reason that these guys don't work well together. But that's an experienced booker who understands that just because you write two names down doesn't mean it's going to be a great match. This is the situation we found ourselves in here. I mentioned it when they put Hobbs and Lee and Wardlow and who was another big giant powerhouse in the ladder match. Okay, let's put all the big guys in there, ruin the mystique of what's going to happen when they touch each other and clutter it up with a bunch of other people. Here it's a singles match. And Mark Henry popped in to do the pre-match promo. And Hobbs did a good promo. Hobbs not only looks good, but he can talk. He's improving his physique. He's growing up in front of our eyes. Keith Lee is growing out in front of our eyes. But on the promos, Hobbs is good. Hobbs talks like Hobbs looks. Hobbs sounds like he meant what he said, kind of. He's not, Mick Foley on a promo yet, but he's new. He's good. Keith Lee did his promo like he does his promos. And I'm thinking now I'm getting why Vince fucking canned him. Because if anybody really does talk like this in real life, they shouldn't. We've made jokes. He talks like Fraser Crane, or he looks like the Hulk, and he talks like Bruce Banner. He's a walking thesaurus. It just doesn't. But here now I understand, because Keith Lee has come out in an interview with one of the websites and said that they criticized him, changed his stuff around, and didn't like the way that he talked. Didn't like his voice or the way he talked. So we know that they went to him probably on numerous occasions and said, this interview is ridiculous that you do, and you got to gruffen up a little bit. And he didn't listen. And he's still doing it, and that's why they canned him. So now it makes sense. Having said that, there's still talent in there somewhere, but I'm afraid it might be buried and running out of time. The people were into it. Especially the people in the building, the match, they did a few big man tackles and no-sold it, and then Hobbs got tackled to the floor for the break spot. So as I said, while they gave the people in the building, they were into it, they didn't give the TV fans any time to really get involved when it started before they went to the break. Kind of broke up the momentum. When they come back, the heat's going on Keith Lee, so we've missed a good bit of Hobbs's heat in the break. And then Keith Lee fights back. And again, I wrote, Hobbs is fine, but Lee doesn't seem to work as well with a big opponent. He sells slow and stationary. He needs a smaller guy that he can push around, that can fly around for him when he's fighting from underneath, because he doesn't stay alive. Finally, he got the big Beal in. I think it was supposed to come earlier, but Hobbs blocked it or whatever. But Ricky Starks runs down to the ring. Here comes Swerve. What's his name now? Swerve Strickland. He used to be Swerve Scott. He's still swerving people. They get in a fight. Taz is down there. Hobbs hits a spine buster, but there's no referee. He's distracted. And then Keith Lee comes from behind and hits his finish. 1, 2, 3. Honestly, I asked you before we went on the air, I said, when you see this, because we talked earlier, you hadn't seen everything yet. I said, when you see this, tell me who the star is. So who was the star in this match?
Well, I thought Hobbs from the promo on was the star of the show here. And Keith Lee, since he got to AEW, he's looked older. I'll say that. I know he's not a young guy. He's in his late 30s. But then he dyed his beard really dark. And it actually made him, I think, look older. And he's in there with Hobbs, who, you said it, he's getting into better shape. He's looked like he could be a star from day one. Now he really looks like it. He came out of this looking really impressive. Keith Lee, to me, came out of it old and slow. But that's just me.
Well, no, it's not just you, because you saw what happened. And the only thing, Hobbs didn't come out of it well because he got beat. And again, I'm not saying that they should have made this match, because I don't think that Keith Lee should be getting beat at this point in time either. But they beat the 25-year-old guy in fantastic shape that has a ton of upside for the ex-WWE guy that's in his late 30s that has gained an enormous amount of weight and can't talk. And I don't. And then there was an afterbirth where Starks and Hobbs used a chair and put Swerve through a table and put the table in the ring and speared Keith Lee through the table. And somehow in an amateur's mind, that means that they got even, and it didn't matter that Keith Lee won and Hobbs got beat, but that's obviously not the case to anybody who understands the business. So you can do something with Keith Lee, maybe against his own, his own wishes. You could do something with him if he'll do what you tell him to do, and he's got physical ability. But this was not a showcase for him, and Hobbs should not be doing jobs to anybody right now on television unless it's an angle in a continuing program.
It is interesting, too, that between Adam Cole and Keith Lee, we are now seeing people that were actually featured better, felt like bigger stars, were used better maybe in NXT than in AEW.
That's what we're seeing. And that was Rampage on Friday night. AEW's answer to a mild-mannered SmackDown.
I don't know what we're transitioning to from a mild-mannered SmackDown.
From mild-mannered SmackDown to a Rampage, and I was up late at night. It almost made me oversleep and miss my breakfast.
Oh,
Brian,
no.
I'll have you know.
That's horrible.
And I hate it when I miss breakfast. And breakfast is so easy now to have because you don't have to cook a bunch of stuff and get a bunch of ingredients out. All you got to do is go to the closet and get you a box of Magic Spoon. And there's so many boxes to choose from because there's so many flavors to choose from. There's cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and maple waffle. And on my copy here, they do not even have the honey nut listed. And Stacy just ordered 4 boxes of that stuff because that's one of her favorites. So, boy, don't leave the honey nut out, folks. I'll tell you what, you will never have a better breakfast or morning in your life than when you put a little nut in your honey, courtesy of our friends at Magic Spoon. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb with 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, 140 calories. You can eat 10 servings of this and still be under a 1,500-calorie diet. I don't know if I'd eat 10 servings of it all day and not eat anything else, but it's good. And you can go right now to magicspoon.com/Jim and grab the custom bundle. Pick your own flavors. And be sure to use the promo code Jim at checkout to save $5 off your order. They've got the 100% happiness guarantee, ladies and gentlemen. If you eat a bowl of this and you are not happy, they will refund your money. So eat a bowl of this right before your wife leaves you or you lose all your money, and then you're going to be miserable and you'll get your money back on the cereal. Is that the way it works, Brian?
You've totally confused me. I have no idea.
You're completely lost in the weeds now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Remember, folks, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal. If you eat this, you can commit any crime and you will feel no guilt.
No, stop that. Don't commit crimes and don't do it on behalf of the cereal you're eating, especially if it's Magic Spoon.
I didn't say they were going to do it on behalf of the cereal. I just said they wouldn't feel guilt afterwards because Magic Spoon eradicates your guilt gland.
You will feel guilt. You'll be guilty. Don't do anything.
All right, then eat a bowl of Magic Spoon and be a guilty son of a bitch about it. Folks, but one way or another, you got to stuff this down your gullet. It's good. MagicSpoon.com/Jim. Use the code Jim to save $5 off at checkout. And don't forget to put a little nut in your honey, too. That'll help everybody around the house stay happier.
All right, if you say so.
Yeah, there we go.
What are you ripping exactly over?
I don't even know.
All right. Well, there was, I think, even a little bit more that we had to watch in the last 24 hours that we have to talk about right now.
Yeah, there was. Well, now we come to our main event of this previous week, which was the Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor on Friday night, April the 1st, at the Curtis Culwell Center in Garland, Texas. That is a suburb of Dallas. As a matter of fact, I think while I was there in Texas, World Class ran Garland as a spot show. One time, I think we drew more people than were in the building for Ring. It was at a high school gym.
Kerry was going to show up, but he decided he wanted to have an ice cream cone, and he stayed home.
That's true. That may be one of the times the boys didn't show up. Anyway, I got the countdown show on this. Somehow I recorded it. It was saying Ring of Honor, the screen on the cable system, Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor countdown or whatever starts in whatever seconds. And then suddenly, bam, it just popped up and there's a shot of the entranceway and here's people coming to the fucking ring and the announcers are already talking. Did I miss something?
I know that, as is typical nowadays, there's also a partner for the pay-per-view event or the premium live event that distributes it on a phone. I think they were with Fight TV there were various other people. So maybe some of them were airing a pre-show, a pre-show. And us
pre-show
plebeians only got the pre-show.
Well, and I didn't watch it either because it came on and Cheeseburger and Eli Isom were on their way to the ring. I know Cheeseburger. He was a wrestling school student / security guy / merchandise guy / gopher 12 years ago. And now he's graduated to the dark match, I guess. But anyway, him and old Eli, who I've never heard of before, were in the ring, and Tully Blanchard comes out. FTR just fired him from AEW. Now apparently he's going to go take over Ring of Honor. And he brings out the two newest members of Tully Blanchard Enterprises, who is a Samoan guy named Toa and another guy named Khan. Not Khan.
Yeah, just what wrestling needed, another Khan.
Another Khan. K-A-U-N, Khan. Khan! And I never heard of either of these guys. Both of them looked great, but I think we know where this was headed, and Cheeseburger and Eli's combined weight is 116, so I didn't watch this match. But again, I'm not trying to knock Tully. Tully is coming off as elderly. And he's probably in better physical condition than I am as far as being athletic. But as Vince says, perception is reality. So let's go to the main show. Ian Riccoboni and Caprice Coleman on the microphone. I listened to the commentary on this show for the first time since the last time we watched Ring of Honor. Because I didn't have 4 different people screaming at me. I didn't have a bunch of Japanese words and phrases being emitted like, Fujinami with Tourette's out of a guy with a sock on his fucking head.
Fujinami with Tourette's? Is that what it sounds like?
It's what he sounds like. Ian Riccoboni is a youthful but authoritative sounding play-by-play guy that sounds like he knows his business but is conversational and works great with Caprice, who's an ex-jock but has the gift of gab. And you can listen to what they're saying because they're not calling the matches for basement marks. They're calling the matches for people that are watching a wrestling match. What the staging, there were well over 1,000 people in the building from what we were told on the internet, but
yeah, I was going to ask you that.
The hard camera shot was a stage, a screen, and 5 rows of ringside on the other side of the ring. I'm not blaming Tony Khan because I guess this was, Ring of Honor, this was their, production, right? Still the last one.
Did they share that building with anyone else?
Well, not at the same time.
But earlier, like in terms of the setup, is it one of those things where another promotion had that building like right before the Ring of Honor show?
I don't think anybody but them could afford that building. That's where AEW runs also. I think all the little outlaw shows were at a hotel somewhere or whatever.
That was really the only negative about the highlight of the show was just the way you heard a crowd you never saw.
Yeah. And when they panned around, everything else was dark. And I know it's probably a bigger building and they weren't completely full, but couldn't you have arranged it where we'd see some of those people? Let's quickly go through some of the early things. Swerve Strickland and Alex Zane. I've never seen Alex Zane. I've seen Swerve Strickland. Zane is allegedly from Lexington, Kentucky. He came out to the ring in a furry red robe, a red ponytail, and a red pirate eye patch that he then took off. He has sight in both of his eyes, but he wore an eye patch to the ring because it looked good with whatever the fuck the rest of that outfit was. And I'll see what's going on here. I'll give it a second. That's what I gave it. It says Alex Zane's first move was a head palm shoot off. And then they started with the cartwheels. And then Zane hit a backflip and covered the guy for a 1 count by leaning back on him like a recliner as I'm wasting my time. What else happened? Anything?
Oh, I really didn't like it. It exemplified a lot of what I really don't like about modern wrestling, which is too many guys. It's just a choreographed, a synchronized routine, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't feel in any way natural. It's just guys running past each other, running at each other.
Yes, they just run back and forth willy-nilly.
Yeah, I don't really like that. And the other thing was, and I forget exactly what it was, but I had Ring of Honor by that point on in the office on one of the monitors, and then also in another room so I could see it wherever I was if I had to walk around. If I had to get food, I could keep watching the event. And at one point, it was just nonstop moves and this and that. And then finally, I think like Swerve laid on top of Zayn, and I think it was Caprice. I don't know if it was Ian, but they go, and he's applied a hold. And I was like, what hold? There is no hold. There's not been a single hold this entire match. And it made me think like Dax Harwood and Punk, any of the FTR matches. You know what really separates it from a lot of the other things? They actually do holds. There's actual wrestling. How many wrestling matches have wrestling nowadays? And they called it a hold. There was no hold applied. There was nothing. He was on top of him. But, no, I really didn't like it. I don't like the style of match. I was curious how the audience was going to react to FTR. The FTR match, I should say.
Yeah.
Based on this. And it made me think, and I know Ring of Honor is the brand, and I know that, Supercard of Honor is like a big event.
Yeah, that's WrestleMania weekend every year.
But like boxing, you can't tell me it wouldn't be a bigger event if it was just Ring of Honor, Briscoes versus FTR with an undercard. Because to me, that's what it felt like.
But that's the only thing people wanted to see on this, even when the matches were announced. But again, I haven't watched a complete Ring of Honor show since 2012. We have watched the Briscoes do some things, and I've seen some clips. But I got to be honest, I was thinking, when we get to the next match, that's when I really thought this. As a boy, all the Ring of Honor fans that existed in 2009, when we tried to upgrade the thing and bring in some mainstream talent, and they all got up in arms and had the pitchforks out for me. What are they thinking now? What have you done to my boy? The Ring of Honor fans had to be ready to set themselves or somebody else on fire over this show, because this was a complete wipe your feet on anything that Ring of Honor ever stood for. And this would have, go back in Supercard of Honor 2010, 2011, 2012, compare it to this card, and I know they've had issues, but a billionaire just bought the company and has a variety of mainstream talent at his disposal. You tell me that this was a pay-per-view. This was one match that people wanted to see, and a more of Tony Khan's questionable judgment. The next match.
But let me just say, though, to that point, I didn't feel ripped off paying $30 just because I wanted to see the one match. And I think that's interesting, too, because remember when AEW first started, I said, $50, this is a ripoff. I don't mind $30 for a main event I want with a bunch of preliminary or undercard matches. It's like boxing. And that's why they should have just pushed the match.
Especially when the main event delivers.
Especially when it delivered. And boy, did it deliver. But we'll get there.
Well, not yet, because the next match was Ninja Mac. Ninja Mac came out. He was 5'2", maybe 140 pounds, in a red outfit and mask. Again, did they just go to the concession stand and find a guy waiting on a hot dog and say, hey, can you fit this suit? Get dressed. You're working. Tully Blanchard comes out and introduces another newest member of Tully Blanchard Enterprises, Brian Cage. They're going to try him again? And he's not going to listen to Tully. He'll drive Tully out of his mind. Because Tully would probably be able to help the fucking guy if he was able to be helped, if he'd listen. So Ninja Mac dives over the top rope to jumpstart it, and Brian Cage catches him and power bombs him on the apron. Then they start the match, and every time Brian Cage does something, the midget will do a nip up and start running again. And then somehow, obviously, Brian Cage beat him. My God, you don't even have to comment on this if you don't want to.
Well, I'll just say I think this kind of gets filed under Booker of the Year. Booking sometimes is more than angles and matchmaking. It's how you juggle your roster. And he found a way to keep Brian Cage and also keep him out of that locker room where so many people hate him. Kudos, Tony Khan.
But you put Ninja Mac on a pay-per-view.
I had never heard of him before.
Mac, well, whoever he is. Well, no, nobody has, but that's the point. They couldn't at least get a responsible-looking athlete from their multitudinous roster to come in and do a job for Brian Cage. They have to. It's like going to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse or Morton's, and on the menu alongside the lamb chops and the giant filet mignon and the prime rib is a goddamn ballpark hot dog. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm paying premium prices to eat in this place, and one of their choices is a goddamn gas station hot dog?
They should have gone the other way. Had the other surprise be Grizzly Redwood and have him bump Brian Cage all around the ring. That would have been a real tribute to the old days of Ring of Honor.
I guarantee it would have happened. It would have happened. I went out of my mind. I had apoplexy one time. We're trying to get Michael Elgin over on TV. He's going to he's going to drop the partner on his head, Grizzly Redwood's partner. Then he's going to beat up Grizzly Redwood in this handicap match until the big baby face comes to try to take the tag and help Grizzly out. And I swear to God, by the time they finished running spots to make Grizzly Redwood look good and shine and excite the people, it was time to go home, and fucking Elgin hadn't got a lick of heat on him yet. That's why I turned around to Delirious and said, who are we pushing here? Anyway, the next match. Lee Moriarty versus Jay Lethal. Seriously, is Ring of Honor now the YouTube show? You got Jay Lethal, one of the most decorated wrestlers in the history of Ring of Honor, one of the most talented guys in the business today, and you're bringing over one of your underneath guys from AEW on a pay-per-view. And it was long and it was competitive with Jay Lethal. And not only that, but this at all wasn't the Ring of Honor atmosphere that I remember and that you saw in those days, 2009, 10, 11, 12, the streamers, the people screaming at the top of their lungs, the chants. They were with all the angles and the talent. They knew everybody. These people are sitting on their hands. I'm not sure I blamed them. With a substandard lineup like this, two matches with nobodies, Lethal in a cold match with a guy they've never seen before.
The other thing is it a Ring of Honor crowd or is it a WrestleMania crowd that's in town?
Well, both, because traditionally people would come in for WrestleMania, but the people who wanted to take the opportunity to see Ring of Honor live for maybe the first time or one of the only times they would hop on the tickets early. And I would assume it's the same thing of all the people coming to WrestleMania. These are the people that wanted to see Ring of Honor. They're seeing a ring. Anyway, so finally, after a very long match, and Moriarty hitting roll-up after roll-up for 2 count, Lethal finally, Sanjay Dutt, his friend, was at ringside watching with old gutless Gary Jester, and Lethal finally hits a ball shot, hits him in the nuts to beat Lee Moriarty. It got massive boos. Well, he hits him with a nut shot and then the lethal injection. But they switched Jay Lethal heel on a rookie underneath guy. And then Matt Sydal, who was on crutches with Moriarty because he's injured, he comes in the ring like, what'd you do? And Lethal cooks his crutch out from under him and beats him up. And I like that part. But, and so Sanjay comes in and the referees comes in and they get Jay off and the people are chanting, fuck you, Lethal, because he turned heel. But my God, is that like switching fucking Barry Windham heel on TBS against Gary Royal or Gene Ligon?
I don't know the answer, and I'm going to guess you don't either. But we've seen Lee Moriarty on AEW TV, no relation to Kathy Moriarty. And
or Professor Moriarty, the arch nemesis of Sherlock Holmes.
Did he come from Ring of Honor? Does he have a background or a history with Ring of Honor?
I don't know that he's ever been there before, ever. I thought they started him in AEW at their school.
That was what I thought, too. I don't know. I mean, they obviously wanted to turn Lethal heel, and their way of getting there was having him do jobs on national TV for a while, to the point where he finally gets upset after the Moxley match and hits the guy in the balls, breaking the code of honor, I guess. And I don't know. Next level booking.
So we followed that up with not the women's championship, but the interim women's championship. So apparently they had a woman's champion. Something happened to her, so now they had an interim champion, Willow, but she faces Mercedes Martinez, who, as we know, is an AEW contracted talent. And Mercedes beats her and wins that time. Oh, my God. They're wiping their feet on everyone. Did I miss anything on that match? Because, seriously.
I didn't pay too close attention to it, other than was it said who the actual Ring of Honor Women's Champion is?
They might have, and I didn't care enough to find out.
Why did they just create an interim champion when Becky Lynch had to forfeit the belt when she was pregnant?
Well, because they don't do that over there.
Okay, just thinking out loud.
That's the reason. All right, here we go. This is what we've been waiting for. It's a shame that we had to get it on a zombie promotion in a, low-budget pay-per-view, but here we are for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship, Mark and Jay Briscoe against FTR. And this was what everybody wanted to see, and this was, obviously, if there was any doubt about that, nobody followed it. After this was over with, it was an hour into the show. They put this match on, and I don't have any idea what their thinking was, because why did they think that anything could come after this? Especially any of these matches. But
their thinking was probably their world championship should come last, and I guess the TV and Pure title come after the tag team title.
And then the title of dog catcher could come after that. Jesus Christ. I understand world championship going on last. Anything else, when you're putting these other matches that nobody gave a shit about on after the one that everybody came to see, you're just killing those guys. You're just making their job harder. People had asked me on a couple of emails and several tweets the past week or so, how would I have set this match up? How would I have laid it out? How would I have started it? How would I finish it? How would it flow, whatever? And my answer is, I don't have any idea. Because, I mean, honestly, part of it was beyond anybody's control, but I wouldn't have been in this position or allowed myself to be in this position with any talent that I was booking. But this match was insanely unique in that every fan wanted to see it. People were calling for it, wanted to see it before it was booked. Everybody was excited when it was booked. With, I can't even say no build. There was a little build, but it was all done by the talent, none by any of the promotions. And it was probably the most horrible build to a match that people wanted to see that I've ever seen in the wrestling business. You got two promotions, but one of them is dead. And you got 2 TV shows, but one of them hasn't produced new content in 3 months. The other one of the teams is not allowed on because one of the executives is a big fucking pussy and got his head up his ass and his panties in a twist about people tweeting. So you can't have one team on one show and you can't have the other team on the other show because there is no show. The babyface and heel dynamic is completely fucked up here because FTR have bounced around from babyface to heel in their presentation and who they're wrestling since they debuted in AEW. The Briscoes would be the babyfaces because they're the home team for Ring of Honor and they've been there since day one. But at the same time, FTR's best utilization is when they're the heels and are running the fucking match. They didn't do any angles for this past shoving and scuffling at Final Battle because it was a rush job. And then they've just talked about each other on Twitter and social media with no help from the actual promotion that's putting the show on. And it still stole the show. Tell me another time that has ever happened in the history of wrestling. So I wouldn't know how to, I wouldn't have known how to put it together because that's such a unique situation that I'm gobsmacked that it's actually come and happened like that, taken place like that. But your job, my job, Tony's job, anybody's job as a promoter or a booker is to take a match that the fans already want to see and give it the biggest buildup possible. And these guys, the talent did all the work. Nothing was promoted here. So that's why I didn't know whether to, you don't know how to lay the match out to who's the babyface and who's the heel, what has gone on between, who has the rawest emotions. Are the babyfaces feeling put upon? So when the heels are in the ring, the babyfaces are going to come from the back and jump them from behind and jump start it and they have a big brawl? Or are they going to come in the ring and start slow and have a classic matchup, which is kind of what they did? Or they, what frame of mind is each participant in? You couldn't really go by it. So they just had to, in a cold vacuum environment, start out and have the match that they wanted to put together, which turned out to be fabulous, but with no help from the promotion on what the people would want to see ahead of time. So, having said that, on the entrance of FTR, the fans woke up. And then here come the Briscoes, and they can sell tickets the way they look alone. They look out of control, and that's what you need in wrestling. The rest of these fucking sissy-ass pussies that wouldn't spit on the sidewalk or double park are just fucking... There's no... Undertaker said it in that interview, not his Hall of Fame. There's no men anymore. These guys are all four able to kick somebody's ass if they're let loose, and they were. And the holy shit chant broke out before the match started. And the Briscoes were baby faces to the crowd, and FTR somewhat played into that by refusing a handshake, but they've been pretty much sabotaged now, FTR, with the back and forth turns, babyface, heel, manager, no manager. But again, from the start, from the lockups, the chants, tag team wrestling, Dax came out of the head scissors, spit in Jay Briscoe's face. It got a huge pop. They worked the people. They worked the audience. They brought them into what they were doing. They didn't just go do a routine it's like you're watching it through a fucking window where you're not connected to it. You're not involved in it. They got some heat on Jay. Jay came back. Mark took over on Cash. All their shit looked good. The chop battles. The commentary added to it. Mark with the Cactus Jack elbow. They had a fight on the floor that was called for. Everybody lost their goddamn composure. And they busted Jay Briscoe open with a boomerang under the bottom of the table. That was an interesting way to use furniture. And Jay's bleeding and they're getting the heat on him. If wrestling was still like this, I'd still want to be in it. Suddenly, we went back 30 years to when this shit was palatable and watchable. And it can be done. So then they got some pretty vicious heat on Jay, but he got the hot tag to Mark, and Mark made a big comeback. And they hit Redneck Boogie and got a 2 count. And then FTR came back. Dax with the slingshot powerbomb. Cash with the splash off the top. 2 count. Huge pop. ROH chant. Dax is bleeding now. The Briscoes foiled the big rig and hit their own for a 2 count. Everybody's selling. They took a couple of big floor bumps, but just one for each guy. And finally, Jay vertical suplexes Dax off the apron to the floor, and that was a bit much. But then everybody laid there and sold to the point the doctors had to come and check on him. And Mark's bleeding. And the referee starts the count, and everybody slowly rolls in and barely stands up. And they go into the double 1-2s in the middle of the ring. And it just, they kept building and building, and the people are freaking out. And again, Jay hits a neck breaker. Mark hits a froggy bow 2 count. And finally, the Briscoes went for the doomsday device. They could barely pick Dax up, but they got him. And suddenly, Dax rolled forward and Mark missed. And then they hit the big rig on Mark 1, 2, 3. And yes, this was changing another Ring of Honor title and beating 2 more Ring of Honor icons, but nobody could argue with it. This was the best tag team match that's taken place in any promotion that we've seen in how long? Years? Would it be years now?
It's been a while. I'd have to stop and think about the last match of this caliber, but let me just say right here, what a fantastic match. Loved it. It looked like a fight. It looked like a struggle. If you just watch the wide camera shot and you see the blood on the ring, you see Dax, you see the Briscoes, they don't just look bloody, they look dirty.
Yeah.
It's been a grueling fight. This was fantastic. And, we'll talk about the angle, I guess, in a moment, but I felt bad actually for any wrestler that had to follow this because the crowd was there for this. And even if they weren't, the match was so good, it would have ruined the rest of the show for any wrestler following it, more than likely.
And I mean, it's not like you couldn't see that coming a mile away. That's why when I saw an hour into a 3-hour show and this match is going in the ring, and they went 45 minutes. They needed the time, but at the very least, this should have been next to last. Go to some interviews and some packages to let the people take a piss and calm down. And then bring the world title match in and let them start off slow. It still wouldn't have followed it, but it wouldn't have buried the other matches.
And one other thing I'll say, because I haven't watched one of their matches in a while, because I've never kept up a Ring of Honor. I've had some bad feelings about some people in Ring of Honor for a while, but from the moment they come out, and I'm curious, a lot of the people who really haven't been exposed to them, what they will end up thinking, boy, the Briscoes are fucking stars.
Oh, yeah, that's why I've been saying that for 15 fucking years.
Man, they feel real, and they're unique, and they're crazy, and I wish there were still people making compilation tapes, and I could just get a compilation of all the FTR matches I really like, because I'd like to watch this match over and over again. Really, really good.
And also, to be quite honest with you, you ought to get a compilation of the Briscoes, too, because then think about this, they're in their late 30s. They're the same age. I know they look a little rough. They're the same age as the Hardley Boys. So they've still got some mileage, and they actually have talent. And we'll get to that in a second. New Ring of Honor champion, standing ovation for the match from the crowd for both teams. They go for the handshake, and FTR stops and does the "we're not worthy" bow. And they get hugs all around, so apparently this will not continue because they've hugged each other now. So we got it once, we'll apparently not get it again. Best tag team match we've seen in years. The people are chanting, "Thank you, Briscoes." And suddenly, I was like you. I was going to save this on the DVR because I thought I'm going to want to go back and watch this some more. I almost don't want to now. They made it just to the finish line, and here comes the Hardley Boys in to fuck it up. Now, again, we're exposed to school children playing wrestler after what we've just seen with these four men. And they come in and get on the Briscoes and do their super kicks, and maybe they might have done one of those stupid little knee lifts or whatever. And FTR come out and make the save and cut a promo and challenge them. They already announced the match is going to take place next Wednesday on Dynamite. Now it'll be for the Ring of Honor Tag Team title. But they challenge them right there, but the Hardley Boys refuse. After ruining what was almost a perfect, flawless segment, they show up. Now I'm afraid that just because I'm sure they can sell to Tony Khan, oh, Tony, imagine how much heat it would get if we won the Ring of Honor tag team titles from FTR. Those fans would really be mad. Now, they'd be disgusted is what they'd be. There's a difference between ticket selling heat and disgusting heat. Nobody wants to see these two little fucking pricks either beating up the Briscoes or beat FTR again. Now, if they'll give them their win back they should have given to begin with, I'll sit through this fucking match. But otherwise, again now, with the kids and FTR, and I don't see how this is going to turn out any different because the Hardley Boys are too smart ass to want to do what's right for business when they can get even with the Briscoes because they were in Ring of Honor with the Briscoes, and I'm sure they felt underutilized because there's the Briscoes, the best tag team in wrestling. And then they come into, they're in AEW, and here comes FTR, and they say, oh, they're too good. We got to bury them. So how do you think that old Matt and Nick Hardley felt when they sat there and saw these two teams do something in that match that they are completely physically incapable of doing? How do you think that sits with them when they think that their little Lollipop Guild group calls them the greatest tag team in wrestling, and they're sitting there watching two other teams so far above their heads they can't even fucking see them? So they're going to have to do something to get even.
I think they sit there and they always say, what would Shawn Michaels do? Because that's what I feel like with FTR.
No, Shawn Michaels drew money.
Hey, but in terms of how you handled yourself at different points, if there was a match 2, and match 2 makes you think there's going to be a match 3. If there's a match 2 and FTR lose again with the promise they'll win the third one, that's Shawn Michaels. Don't go with that promise. And then if FTR's defeating the Young Bucks there, they deserve the win back, but also what are we doing with FTR? The Young Bucks are in this feud of sorts in the comedy section of the show with the Undisputed Era, who have stolen belts. Now the Young Bucks have stolen belts. That's what I fear. They're going to beat FTR to bring all the belts together because they want some pictures of themselves holding all these belts.
Well, there you have, and you know, hey, Hardley Boys, call paint your life. Take it easy on the if you just want a picture with all the belts so you can sit and fondle your gonads and look at them, just call paint your life. Don't take it out on the wrestling fans and the quality wrestlers. Anyway, closing thoughts on this match. I wish we were going to see a bunch more of them. Obviously, that's not going to happen, or elsewise everybody wouldn't have hugged and kissed at the end of it. But they set a nice standard there. Again, the WWE should see that and go put the Briscoes in counseling for something so they can be all contrite and apologize and put them on national television. Cannot somebody have a goddamn bit of logic, common sense, and gumption to reward the real talent instead of the people who don't hurt anybody's feelings and suck on our television? Your thoughts, closing thoughts.
Fantastic match. like you, sad if it means we don't see another Briscoes FTR. But as WWE Hall of Famer and motivational speaker The Undertaker said, never say never. Anything could happen in the WWE, or in this case, something else that Tony Khan owns. Really great match. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, it's certainly right with a segment of the audience, but I think it's a growing segment. I think the Young Bucks have gone from heels with some heat to really having a lot of go-away heat. And I feel like they're building upon go-away heat, not building heat. And
well, because Tony don't know the difference, does he?
I don't think they know the difference either.
No, they wouldn't. They've never been in the wrestling business.
But that's my 2 cents on the Bucks. When the Bucks came out, again, whatever you want to say about the Bucks, big success as headliners for Ring of Honor. This was their fan base for a while. This was the fan base that built AEW.
Well, no, because the Ring of Honor fans have turned on them because they know they're the ones that wrecked the company. They let all those jackoffs come in. They catered to them. They took over the program. They instituted all their comedy bullshit. And then when they left to take the billionaires' money, they took their little cult audience. And meantime, all the booking had been centered around all of them. So they left Ring of Honor high and dry with nothing going on, having to start from scratch.
The reaction they got when they came out, it wasn't, boo, the Bucks are heels. Certainly it wasn't, boo, they're real-life heels.
Like, it was, oh, they're going to fuck this up.
It was, God damn it, these guys are going to come out here and fuck this up. And, you know, that's where I think they're crossing that line and getting go-away heat, because I think it's happening in a lot of their segments, not just this fantastic match. Yeah, look, people are going to pop for the flips. This is an audience that comes to jump out of their seat for near falls. There are certain things they're going to react to. But I think the Bucks have more go-away heat right now than people realize or want to accept, but we'll see how this plays out.
Well, there were still plenty of matches, even if there wasn't plenty of energy in the crowd to cheer for them. The Ring of Honor TV title followed this. This had to be sabotage, or do you think they just said, fuck it, we'll just send Rhett Titus and Suzuki out to just cool them off after this? It's a hopeless cause, try to get anything to follow it. But poor Rhett. Rhett Titus, another guy. He was there from the start of Ring of Honor. He trained under Delirious in the Ring of Honor wrestling school. He worked on the ring crew. Even when he started getting used, he was still working for less money per night than most of the guys, because he had started there as a local guy and part of the school. But he worked his ass off. He changed his physique completely, and he's ripped. And he's been there all these years, and he's a quality guy. He works hard. He's loyal. He's the TV champion. He comes in to the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, and this time they don't bring some underneath guy from AEW to beat him. They bring in Minoru Suzuki just because I guess he was in America for WrestleMania weekend, that has never held a championship in the United States of America from what they said. And they put him in a squash match. Was Suzuki sweating by the time that he hit Rhett Titus with a finish and sat on his chest 1, 2, 3?
No.
So now here's another guy that emblematic of Ring of Honor and has worked his ass off and is in his 30s, not his 50s, and looks great physically instead of, I know Suzuki's a badass that can pick his teeth with most people. He looks like a frail senior citizen that can barely move with either a fucking horrible case of hemorrhoids or something shoved up his sphincter. And he's bow-legged. And he beats Rhett Titus and wins the Ring of Honor TV title in a glorified squash match. How old is Minoru Suzuki?
I think he's in his early 50s. I'd have to double check.
But the point is, so now they got to fly him back over here to defend the Ring of Honor TV title? Or was this just something to do for the weekend because who gives a shit? Because there's no 53, and there's no Ring of Honor TV show anyway. Currently, But there you go. And I guarantee you that Tony Khan has his ass so far up the fucking country of Japan, has his head.
His ass is so far
or his ass so far up the country of Japan's head, or his head so far up the country of Japan's ass, that he thinks that the fans in that building were happy to see a Japanese legend squash their TV champion, even though it makes no sense. But they saw Suzuki. Yeah, and they sat on their hands the whole time he was out there because they couldn't follow the tag match. Speaking of not following the tag match, the next match for the pure wrestling title. And this is something else that Ring of Honor innovated. And it's got specific rules, which they not only showed on the screen, but which Ian Riccaboni and Caprice could explain to us and tell us. Limited amount of rope breaks, etc. It's all about scientific wrestling and pure athleticism. Josh Woods versus Wheeler Yuta. Josh Woods is the champion. Josh Woods is a shooter. He's a former MMA fighter. As a matter of fact, when I managed Dan Severn, what was it? A little over 5 years ago now at WrestleCade, 2016, my last match as a manager, I managed Severn. He wrestled Josh Woods, who had just started then. And Josh was greener than a pepper tree. But now he looked pretty good, and he's built, and he's a real wrestler. And he looked like the kind of guy that could put a ham sandwich on your back and starve you to death if he wanted to. And he's in there with the new Daniel Garcia. Wheeler Yuta is everywhere. His tights are still hideous. And he's still the same that we talked about earlier in the show, the same guy that's been a flunky until 2 weeks ago. And he comes in here against this MMA fighter and pins Woods and wins the pure title. A guy that's been jerking the curtain for AEW again comes into Ring of Honor and wins one of their titles. You mean it? Talk about Dusty and Crockett botching the UWF invasion. This isn't even an invasion or an infiltration. This is some homeless people apparently wandered onto the property, and Tony set the dogs on them. That's the way they're treating the Ring of Honor talent. The judges for this match, for a technical wrestling match, were B.J. Whitmer, Christopher Daniels, and Colt Cabana. I can see Colt Cabana as a judge on the comedy portion of America's Got Talent. I don't see him judging a wrestling match. I liked Woods. He's got a different style. We've covered Yuta. But again, if you intend to ever push somebody, what you've done with them previously affects that. So you need a plan. And the crowd was dead again. And Yuta beat the real shooter in a pure wrestling match. And the AEW job guys have about got a clean sweep of all the Ring of Honor belts. Except for FTR, who are a step above job guys in AEW. Again, Ring of Honor fans from 10 years ago, my turn at the wheel doesn't look so bad now, does it? I didn't take dirty toilet paper and stick it in your fucking mouth. Anyway, your thoughts on that contest, Brian?
I can't say too much about the match just because, unfortunately, this point in the night, after everything I had already watched and also knowing I had to watch so much more, and then I just watched a lot of Wheeler Yuta. It's a hard name to spit out sometimes. I've just recently watched a lot of Yuta. I ended up skipping a lot of this match.
Wait a minute, is that Joe Pesci? Is it? Did you say Utes?
Two Utes.
I've just watched two Utes.
That was Fred Gwynn. But other than that, I'm guessing they give him the pure title and somehow it ties into whatever he's doing with Danielson and Regal and Moxley and their Fight Club.
Well, there's one more title to go for the Ring of Honor World Championship.
Can I stop you?
Yes, you can.
Before this match, had you ever seen Bandito before?
Never. I have heard of him. As I've mentioned, I haven't been following Ring of Honor except for the Briscoes, few things, but I'd heard of Bandito. I'd never seen him wrestle in Ring of Honor or anywhere else. And that's why I've seen Jonathan Gresham. He and Lethal were a tag team for a while. They had some great team moves, and I think they split up. I've seen him wrestle a couple of times, still not a ton of it, but that's why I was like, old Bandito better be a world beater and better just make people drop their teeth on the floor to be able to follow the tag match. And so I was interested in seeing how did Bandito, a Lucha Libre star, suddenly become the Ring of Honor champion? Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Tyler Black / Seth Rollins, Davey Richards, Jay Lethal. Bandito? One of these things is not like the other. And I wanted to see whether this was going to be flippy lucha or whether Bandito could actually work. So that's where I'm at on that one. Had you seen Bandito?
I had not. I had read about him. I had heard about him. But because I don't watch Ring of Honor, and I hadn't in a while, and nothing before this match and that tournament we watched really has pulled me into it in a very long time, and I don't watch Lucha right now, I had no idea who the hell he was.
Did Bandito steal your heart?
His mask did. What an interesting mask. I'd not seen a mask like that before. What'd you think of that?
He looked a little like Zorro if Zorro was a highway robber and
I was thinking John Merrick.
Oh, come on.
It's kind of like an Elephant Man hood. What was that mask?
Like the hood that Gary Hart used to put over Abdullah the Butcher's head when he wanted the butcher to stop assaulting people. But at least we know now that Tony Khan finally answered Chavo Guerrero's phone calls. Because now Chavo is back as the manager of Bandito.
Okay, hold on. I don't want to spoil it. Well, we're going to spoil what else happened in this match. So Chavo, who's to the best of my knowledge, never been Ring of Honor ever.
Never.
For several weeks at most, was all of a sudden the manager of Andrade in between Vicky Guerrero and Jose the assistant.
Right.
Then he disappeared to do a show.
Goes to Australia.
Complained about the fact that he was told his job would be safe, and he found out his job was not safe in any way. Then goes public with that. I guess they reach out to him and say, we'll make you the manager of the Ring of Honor World's Heavyweight Champion, Bandito. Sounds like a pretty prestigious role. But his reign of management of Bandito lasted hours, and even Bandito turned on him. What was this?
I was about to say, not only does the guy, the first time he manages the guy, he loses the world title. But then for the first time in history, as Caprice Coleman called it, for the first time in history, a guy asked for his own manager to be kicked out of ringside by the referee. Don't get rid of him. He's yours. Yeah, I don't want him. The fuck is going? So anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Gresham is very short, but he's built like a tank. But honestly, the early part of this was like watching a match in a library because people were so quiet. And they couldn't just run off and do things at 100 miles an hour because then they'd run off and leave the people and they wouldn't be reacting anyway. But I was waiting for Bandito to impress me. He's not bad. He's not like a outlaw lucha goof like a lot of the flippers on AEW. He's very coordinated. But I didn't see anything about size, work, look, personality. You can't see his face. That blows me away. That he would be a world champion, that he's somehow special. Gresham is technically excellent, needs a bit of the personality. They worked really hard and seemed serious, but there was no violence to this. There wasn't a fight, a struggle. It was wrestling with no emotion. Bandito has the mask. You can't see his face. Gresham needs a high gear emotionally, not necessarily physically, but emotionally. And this wasn't violent. This wasn't a fight. We've seen it already. And again, this was hurt by coming after the tag match. And also it went over 20 minutes when we're closing in on 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 Central out there. And finally, Bandito super kicked Gresham, and Gresham turned to sell it and poked the referee in the eye. So Gresham goes for a springboard, but Chavo, with the title belt, flails it up to hit Gresham, and he fumbled it. And the belt went up over Gresham. Gresham takes the bump, and the belt went into the ring. Chavo reaches in and grabs the belt, pulls the belt out. And Bandito turns around and gets pissed and tells the referee to kick his own manager out. You would have thought they'd have worked something like that out before they came out. Hey, if I get in trouble, Chavo, help me, or I don't care what happens, don't help me. So then they did a bunch of false finishes, and they started going 100 miles an hour, and the crowd kind of got back in it by that point. And then suddenly Gresham rolled him up. 1, 2, 3. And apparently Gresham had been the interim Ring of Honor champion because Bandito during COVID had either gotten COVID or couldn't come into the country because of COVID. And then they'd both been claiming the title, and this was the unification. So Gresham is the new Ring of Honor champion. Thank you for coming, Bandito and Chavo, your new spot there. And then you knew something was going to happen because Gresham stays in the ring. Bandito and the referee leave, and Gresham's got a microphone. And he started talking, and honestly, I've never met the guy, and I'm not trying to knock him, but I maybe understand now why that he might not have been the most over Ring of Honor champion of all time, because when he started talking, who was it said one time about that food was so dry you had to eat it in the rain? Well, his speech started out so dry, somebody needed a garden hose. And he basically got out that his mission was to make Ring of Honor pure, and the pure title and the pure wrestling and whatever the fuck. Here comes Jay Lethal. I know what you're trying to do, Gresham. You're trying to send everybody here home happy, but after all that I've done for all of you and everybody, I should be the first guy to challenge for the Ring of Honor title. And again, Gresham's response, he started, and it was like listening to a librarian speak back. And then Lethal pie-faced him, and they start shoving. Sanjay gets in, separates him, turns around, nails Gresham. And Sanjay, who, by the way, we haven't seen on a wrestling program in forever, is he going to be Lethal's manager? And from what I like Sanjay too, and he's a fine young man, but I think Lethal's got the promo thing dicked compared to Sanjay. So I don't know but Sanjay and Lethal beat up Gresham, put the boots to him. Lee Moriarty comes in for a save. Goddamn, I'm glad I wasn't down and in need if I had to depend on Lee Moriarty. They gave him the lethal injection. And I was just thinking then, because I'm looking at the people not really giving a shit, and I'm seeing Jay Lethal kicking the shit out of job guys. And I'm thinking I had not only better angles, but bigger names on Ohio Valley Wrestling Television when it was a local wrestling school. And just then, music, Samoa Joe. Again, wrestling gods, we have some hope, but I'm going to try not to get too over the moon about this, because who knows what'll happen. Maybe Samoa Joe will be Daniel Garcia's next victim, the battle of the fucking chokeout holds. But Joe comes to the ring, gets face-to-face with Lethal, chokes out Sanjay Dutt, taunts Jay to get in the ring, and we close. So at least Samoa Joe is there now. But again, are we going to get to see him? Are we going to get to see him regularly? Are we going to get to see him the way we want to see him? Or is he just another shiny new toy that'll be prominent for about a week and a half?
Well, they've already announced he'll be on Dynamite on Wednesday, and they put out a graphic that Samoa Joe is all elite. And thankfully, he showed up in his wrestling gear.
Oh, I'm sure that for the next 2 to 2.5 weeks, we'll see him everywhere. He might pop up on Tony Khan's driver's license picture. We don't know. But then after that, who knows what might happen? Again, They have loaded up on talent that, my God, we're going to, when all this dies down, and after this week's drive-through, when we talk about whatever they do at WrestleMania, if they separated the dreck from their stars and their good talent, they've got a heck of a roster. They just have no coherent plan whatsoever on how to implement that roster. Samoa Joe could be a benefit in a variety of ways, not the least being a grown adult fucking man that looks like he could hurt somebody. Also being an experienced veteran can possibly, hopefully, if they'll listen, teach some of the guys some things. And he's over to not only the Ring of Honor audience, but also the AEW audience, independent wrestling audience. And he'll be a boon to them. I just hope that they don't...
If they use him there. I mean, again,
if they don't boon him like they booned everybody else. I'm sorry, I mean bone.
Are you talking about
a lot of people?
Are you talking about using Samoa Joe in Ring of Honor or in AEW?
Both.
Okay. Because I wasn't sure if you were thinking that they're going to use him exclusively in Ring of Honor or something.
No, I'm saying he's over with all those audiences. He's still got it in him, I would assume, unless he's had... Because remember, they didn't strip him the NXT title when he won it because of an injury. He said he got COVID. They just took it off of him. We never saw him again. They didn't know what to do with him in the WWE or NXT or how to treat him or what the fuck, back and forth. Okay, here he is. He's showing up for work. He's ready to go, and he can produce. Give him something to work with or make him look like another flunky like all the rest of your acquisitions lately, Tony. One or the other, I'd hope for one rather than the other. But either place, Ring of Honor or AEW. And they can't just exile certain people to Ring of Honor if there's no crossover, then they're just making a secondary program. You've got to jazz up and revitalize and have some life in Ring of Honor so that you could have some interest. If it just becomes the YouTube show where they train the greenhorns, then that's a waste of fucking time. They've already got that. If some people want to dominate Ring of Honor to get a leg up in AEW, then they'll be chomping at the bit to go in there, and competition in Ring of Honor could be described or portrayed as fierce because of the leg up that you can get in OVW. In AEW, and there'll be crossover back and forth amongst different stars, and many of the AEW superstars or previous Ring of Honor champions. And if you build the thing up to where it's an entity that has a chance to be competitive with AEW, and there's some cross promotion involved, then you can do a proper fucking rivalry. If it's just a glorified YouTube show where you send all your cast-offs, then who's going to fucking watch it? That's my thought.
Well, that was Supercard of Honor. Unfortunately, just the end of our first binge of watching wrestling this weekend. There is so much more.
I forgot this is my show, isn't it?
It is, thankfully.
I was almost waiting for you to wrap up, but I don't have to do that anymore.
No.
What's on your show? We're going to talk about NXT, carry out and delivery. We're going to talk about WrestleMania nights 1 and 2, and is Cody really going to show up, and where and how, and what's he going to do, and are the people going to fart at it, and all the other fallout from everybody else's, negative issues at WrestleMania weekend. They always come up and they always come out, and we'll be covering them.
Last minute predictions on the record, because this will come out after night 1. Cody Rhodes, what color hair will he have?
I betcha it's going to be blonde. And the reason I say that is because I think Vince will encourage him to look as ridiculous as possible. And Vince probably thinks that his tattoo and his blonde hair will look more ridiculous than his tattoo and his dark hair. Question 2 was, do you think he had laser removal of the tattoo at the time of his hiatus? Maybe that's where he's been hidden for so long. The contract was contingent on the blemish removal. And
that would be amazing. That would be the most amazing thing of all time if he showed up without the tattoo.
Hey, Dusty had the big red splotch on his side, but that was Mother Nature. He didn't do that on purpose. And but Diver Ted, the first time we wrestled Dusty in the Superdome, one of the promos I did leading up to it, I say, everybody, you all want to know where that spot came from on Dusty Rhodes' side? That's where he had the word Goodyear dermabrased off his skin. And fortunately, he never heard about that promo until after the match, so he couldn't take it out on the boys. Anyway, so we're sorry, folks, ladies and gentlemen, if we didn't have enough off-topic frivolity or classic wrestling content today. We're trying to muddle through all this. It's the big weekend, the drive-through in a couple of days. We will finish up and put a button on and a bow and a ribbon and wrapping on all of this WrestleMania, and then we'll be back to our normal fine programming next week. And don't forget JimCornette.com. As we've been on the air on this program, I don't have exact numbers right now, but I'm thinking that if you want an action figure in the next couple of days, it might be an idea to jump in quick because this doesn't seem to be slowing down. So JimCornette.com, just a word to the wise. Brian, are y'all set, ready to go, finished, done, over with, in the archives, vapor, kaput?
For this show, yes, I'm ready to watch more wrestling in, hours. Not even hours. An hour or so? I don't even know when this starts. When does it start?
It starts at 7 or 8, but we have to go back and watch NXT that's already happened while we were doing this. So we got a lot to do.
I watched a lot of it in the background while we were
recording. No, you got to go back and pay more attention. There's going to be a quiz. All right, folks, we'll see you in a couple of days for the drive-thru for this WrestleMania weekend edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. Thank you, fuck you, and order an action figure quick, everybody.